we've done it again. Look at that. Got my snoozy pug over here. This is Friday fuck around day, honestly. Friday's a day that I have just dedicated, like I'm going to still do the stream, but I'm putting in no effort at all. I shouldn't say no effort, but like, I don't get days off anymore. I work Capitalism Saturday, Sunday, and then the rest of the week I dedicate to doing the live stream. So I've been contemplating whether or not to do Fridays, to get rid of it or not. But I think the balance that I'm striking is that I'm just turning Friday into kind of a fuck around day. I do what I want. And it ends up kind of just being the same. Really lovely day today, in fact. My brother, who, he's got a family and a job and all that kind of regular stuff. He never gets a moment. Actually ended up with an afternoon off. He's living in Winnipeg. I'm here in Toronto. And he suggested, hey, do you wanna play an afternoon of video games? Hey, Vince, how you doing? And so we played some Civilization 6, a classic, if you're familiar with it. Had some multiplayer games. Great fun. What an amazing time, man. It's so nice to just sit down with, like, my brother and just, like, play some video games. And it, like, transports us back to our youth and all of the, like, inside jokes and all of the things, the tricks that we used to play on one another, the funny things that we used to do to one another manifest yet again. Yeah, he's like a master of sneak attacks. That's what he loves to do. He loves sneak attacks that are like decisive, and he's always angling for like, how can I get a sneak attack in? And to the point where he'll completely sacrifice his whole game if it means we have a big laugh because of a funny like sneak attack. Yeah, time flies by too fast, doesn't it ever, bud? Doesn't it ever? Yeah, bud. But no, it was such a good experience, and hopefully hopefully we can make more time for that and all that. And one of the problems, I think, was his perception of like, oh, when we get down and play a game, it takes so long, like there's a length of thing. But I think I found a way to do it so that all we need is like 2 hours to just like have a nice solid game experience together. And I feel like 2 hours he's going to be able to manage, right? So hopefully moving forward, right, as we move into our 40s, we'll be able to actually get together and have an enjoyable experience together more and more. Major, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Always a pleasure. I love the picture that I found. Welcome to the party. What? Worker. I have been reading more and more about Stalin and Stalin's period of time. And I understand why he's a controversial figure. Like, he's a very controversial figure. Just going through the what's called the Great Purge. And what's so difficult about Stalin is that there's not that many really good balanced sources that want to talk about Stalin, right? Like, there's not a lot of really good... Like, the sources that are in Russia don't get translated into English, right? That, like, there's a book that I'm currently reading that's going through some of the events in Stalin's life, some of the controversial stuff, that literally had to be translated by, like, volunteer basis. Like, nobody is willing to translate anything that is considered pro-Stalin or at least even trying to give a balanced position of Stalin. And so everything you get about this guy, especially when you could, like, the Great Purge, like, you're talking about highly conflict-based events where there are, like, coup attempts that occur. Stalin is a nuanced figure, but liberals criticize him for all the wrong reasons. Absolutely. I think that's absolutely right. Like, liberals take the lowest possible hanging fruit. Like, once you get through, like, getting through the layer of demonization is so, like... The fact that they're even talking about, like, the first thing they'll talk to you about is the famines. Like, that's the first thing that they'll bring up. And it's like, as if the West has never had experienced famines or done famines or had any famines occur before. Like, and so you got to dig through total bullshit before you can even get to, like, actual sources that are actually doing anything, right? And then you find that those sources are like heavily biased against communism in the first place as an idea, let alone Stalin, right? And Stalin also has a really there's a real issue. Well, not issue, but like Trotsky is his foil, right? Like that's always the case. It's always been the case. In their relationship was always antagonistic to each other. They hated each other very clearly. Like it's super obvious. Even Lenin commented on it, right? Like it's super clear. And Trotsky escapes Russia, and he becomes like the voice of the movement against Stalin. And the big issue with that is that Trotsky is actually very intelligent, right? And what makes it extra interesting is that Trotsky is mainly correct in his theory. That's what makes it so difficult. Like Trotsky, so Trotsky is a powerful figure in Russian history alone, and I just see these two forces really like coming at each other. And here in the West, we've been so like Trotskyized, and there's this like Trotskyite perspective that comes along to the point where it's like you talk to Trotskyists and they'll talk about like the Great Purge, and they treat it like it's this like incredible like Stalin's oppression and all this kind of stuff. It's like literally the party would purge itself every like 5 years. And then as they were going to a war with Germany, they do a purge of the party and it turns violent, right? And the trouble is that we don't actually know what happened during that period of time. There's a lot of speculation, right? There's a lot of speculation. And you end up with like one person's side of the story. I do wonder how Trotsky would have dealt with World War II. I do prefer Trotsky over Stalin. I don't have a preference. I think that's the thing that infuriates people about me. I truly don't have a preference. Like, they're both fascinating, interesting figures in their own right. They obviously both have their own perspective, and both of their perspectives collided with one another, right? Like, when I look at Stalin's perspective, it's like, well, here's this arrogant dickhead walking around saying we need to have a permanent revolution as he continuously loses political conflicts against me, Stalin, right? Like, and then during a period of time when we're actually in a conflict trying to purge people from the party, it's very believable to me that this idea of permanent revolution, which seems a very convenient position to take for Trotsky, right? So either Trotsky, everyone goes along with his idea of permanent revolution, and then he's like the leader of a permanent revolution, or no one goes along with it, or not enough people go along with it politically, and he loses politically, and then he gets to permanent revolution anyway. So he's the leader of a permanent revolution in any case, regardless as to what people say, or how the votes go, or where the power swings, right? So it's a very kind of convenient position for Trotsky to take. And one where he gets to kind of retreat into sort of a moral abstraction. Instead of like, and then of course if you take Trotsky's position, right, you take a look at it from his perspective, like Stalin is a bureaucrat who just ascends the ranks of this power structure that I consider to be calcified in the first place, like a post-revolutionary structure that begins to take on the edifice of the old Tsarist regime that we should reform and do away with. And Stalin is working to uphold it. And so we should have a revolution against forces that appear to be just as bad as the Tsarists were. Whether, like, and that's not really true, but that's kind of the Trotskyist position. And then, of course, that self-justifies itself, right? Then every act of violence that occurs from Stalinists reinforces the idea that we need to overthrow it. And as the Trotskyists get more revolutionary and more willing to overthrow the system, the Stalinists get more defensive of the gains that they have made politically. And what makes the conflict interesting is that both sides view themselves as correct, and both sides have a point, right? And really, and I say this like completely against what I think the Trotskyists believe. I really do think it came down to the fact that these two guys just could not get along. Like really, really. Like they weren't willing to reach across and shake each other's hands and find a compromise. That they really, really weren't willing to do that. I think fundamentally because they didn't respect each other. Like Stalin viewed Trotsky as an arrogant, detached, like haughty, judgmental. Land on it. Not idiot, but like just a pain, a thorn in his side, like a Sheldon Cooper type, right? Just like this shrill, annoying voice that exists within his life that he has to deal with, right? Whereas Trotsky viewed Stalin as a crude, crass idiot, right? And like they end up forced into the same movement because of how things have gone for them. And the thing that kept them together for so long was Lenin, right? That Lenin is the reason why these two men, who end up being two factions, are able to work together, and they were never able to find a way to look at one another and say like, okay, I respect you. We need to move forward for strength and unity. And instead they came to a head and blew up off one another, right? And like there's an alternative universe where Trotsky wins, and then Trotsky is the commissar, or whatever they want to call it, of the permanent revolution that exists throughout Russia, and then Stalin is the one that's banished, and then we're all here in the West probably Stalinists. You know? Like that's my perspective. That the only reason we're actually Trotskyists is because Trotsky blew off of Stalin, and we are in the West anti-communist from the get. So anything that facilitates the anti-communist mindset, we'll do it, right? And so I'm bad at talking about leaders. I just think it's weird when people focus on the leader as if it negates socialism. Yeah, and like that's the other part of it, is like people talk about Stalin as if he was like this dictator wielding like a fiery sword with like angel wings and like spitting, but like that, and everyone was just like cowering before his fearful might. And it's like, Stalin was part of a group of people in an organization, right, that believed in the cause and believed in what he was saying. Like, that's the unfortunate truth about politics, and it's, to me, that's like the big moment of how you grow up as a political analyst, is that you realize that like a guy like Justin Trudeau, for example, right? Like Justin Trudeau is the leader of the country because most people vote for him. That's the truth. That when he talks, most people go along with it. Right, and it's the same of most leaders in time. Like think of the most gruesome, brutal, like Hitler, right? Hitler like did evil things and fucked people up and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is he was the leader of the country because most people went along with him, right? That he was clutching onto a book that said let's exterminate the Jews, and people either didn't mind that, or we're fine, or we're in favor of it, right? Like, and that's just the dirty truth of how politics actually works. That, and once you accept that, then it comes into analyzing. Like, this is why they don't want you to analyze humanities. Like, they don't want you to know much about how humans actually think or work, right? Because if you know how humans think or work, then you'll understand why they're doing what they're doing. Right? Like, why are people still voting conservative? Like, it's completely baffling, right? Like, it's confounding, and a lot of it is because of cultural grievance. Like, a lot of it is cultural grievance, like, and this era of political correctness and the focus on gender studies and feminism and all of this kind of stuff, which are important, but which have been done against the cultural. Like, it's fine to have a feminist or a gender studies kind of position, but what liberals use it for is to deflect and ignore class consideration, right? That we don't need to talk about the material conditions of the people so long as we are talking about gender issues or identity politics. And because it's been identity politics for so long, like, the people who are supporting the conservatives are literally doing so because of cultural grievance. And unless we actually start getting materialistic, like what's actually happening in the world, unless we actually get material analysis into the conversation, which hasn't been in the conversation for 20, 30 years, not really, right? Like, that's why everything's gone to shit, because we don't actually talk about it. And if we don't get it into the conversation, things are going to get much worse. I'm with you there. The goal is to implement, policy, ideology. Why do people who compare Stalin to Hitler, which is an embarrassing comparison, like, it's embarrassing to compare Stalin to Hitler. Like, you're literally just admitting you have no idea what you're talking about. Why do people who compare Stalin to Hitler conveniently forget that Hitler was the one who actually had the intention to genocide certain groups of people, not Stalin? Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just the anti-communist line, right? And like, so much of what we talk about in communism today here in the West is because North America took in lots and lots of refugees over World War II. Many of them were fascists, right? Like, we took in like huge amounts of Ukrainians, right? So much so that there's like a Ukrainian bloc that exists within the Liberal Party. Canada is one of only 5 nations to actually acknowledge the existence of the Holodomor, or at least to acknowledge that it was like the Holodomor was a genocide, right? So only 5 nations on the planet have acknowledged the reality of that. The United States hasn't even done it. And the reason why it was done, Pierre Elliott Trudeau did it so that he could shore up the Ukrainian vote and ensure he gets a majority, right? Like, that's why he did it. And so, like, it's when things like this are done for very, very political reasons, it gets pretty obvious what's going on. And because there's like such a huge influx of fascists into the society, well, then the fascists will tell you their narrative and they'll be like, communism is bad because, and then, like, you know, you ask them, like, okay, but like, so you were fighting against communists during this period of time. Who are you fighting for? And then they get real quiet and shuffle away. Because it's like, oh yeah, don't want to bring up the fact that they were literally fighting for the Nazis, right? Like, don't want to bring that up. But that's what's happened. And so the reason why Stalin especially takes a lot of heat, and the reason why there's all this going, like, I mean, if you fought for the Nazis, or if your family fought for the Nazis, like, you hate Stalin, right? Because Stalin beat you, straight up. Like, Stalin won that war. Like, the Soviets won that war, right? And they won the war because the communist economy was stronger than the capitalist economy. And it really is that straightforward, right? Like, we have documentation. We have their own diary entries where the Germans are going in, and they were just like, we did not expect them to have the production capacity that they had. That means that they underestimated the economic power of the Soviet Union and their productive capacity. And why? Because they were comparing it to their own. Right? They were looking at what they had, and then they were looking at what the Soviets had, and they thought to themselves, well, we know how much we can produce given the equipment and all this kind of stuff that they must have access to. But the reality is what was the difference between the communist economic structure and the German economic structure? One was capitalist and one was communist. Right? So the communists have a stronger economy and win the war by outproducing, right? Like, it's and so if you're a Nazi or a fascist, which we accepted many of those people into the society, then you want to make sure that all gets downplayed, right? Like, and this is why the Americans are permitted to take credit for the war. Right? It's because it's not a bunch of Russians that came over to America. It's not a bunch of communists that came over to America, right? I mean, even there were, certainly, but like lots of fascists came over. And they'd be willing to be like, yeah, the Americans are the ones that want it, not the people who actually won the war, not the communists, certainly not. I wonder if a leaderless system could be possible. I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. Like, if it's not a leader, it's going to be some kind of council, right? It's going to be some kind of like, and at the end of the day, people love leaders. Like we do. We love like the icon. We love the kind of thing. We love that they represent kind of who we are in the moment. Like, we love it. I think even if we could create one, I don't think we would. 'Cause that's how much I think we love the idea of having like a leader, right? Having the icon. Someone I talked to was horrified of Stalin. I mean, yeah. Like, yeah. Like we've been inundated with such a heavy amount of propaganda about Stalin. Like, and it's a huge amount of propaganda that we've been inundated with Stalin. And like, people don't like to accept that sometimes people just have to deal with shitty situations, right? And that people don't like to accept that like there is such a thing as a no-win situation, right? The Kobayashi Maru, right? There are situations you cannot win, that and you just have to trod through them anyway, right? It's how life is, and I feel like Stalin encountered many of those in his life, right? More than most men, I think. Stalin encountered many situations that were lose-lose. Like, no matter what he did, there was going to be a loss. I look at the Great Purge, like I'm reading through it right now, right? And I'm just like, man, this looks like a lose-lose. This looks like a no-win situation for Stalin. Like, how anyone could have actually navigated those waters, right? Like, very, very difficult. Very difficult. And like, the truth is that the Soviet Union was heavily factionalized, right? And there was no clear, like, for God's sakes, Lenin flipped-flopped between giving his voice of support to Stalin or Trotsky. Like, really think about that. Like, the leader of the revolution, right, Lenin, knowing that he is going to die soon, he's aware of it, is flip-flopping between Stalin and Trotsky for where to give his support. Like, that's a heavily factionalized ruling class, right? Like, with a leader that doesn't know where to send the energy in order to ensure a smooth transition after he goes. And then and interestingly, like, and this is the thing that the Trotskyists don't really like to talk about, is that there was a system in place and Stalin won, right? Like, given the rules that they had, Stalin wins, right? He's the one who sways the most people. He's the better politician, right? And like, and then you'll hear like, oh, he was with an iron fist and spreading around fear and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I mean, okay, welcome to politics, baby. Like, I'm sorry. Like, sorry. Like, welcome to politics. Like, I hate to break it to you. Right? Like, okay, buddy. Okay. What's up? Do you want peanut butter? You're sitting over here whining like a little baby. There's peanut butter here. Right? Is it a ball? Is it a ball? It's the ball, isn't it? You want the ball? Go get it. Like, I don't understand why fear is off the table. Like, sorry, like, fear counts. Like, and there is such a thing as a people who need to be scared straight, right? Like, it. Like, we're a group of monkeys. We're not better than that. Like, the only thing that's different between us and monkeys is that we know how to articulate abstract thought. That's all, right? That's our skill. And here in the West, we actually do everything we can to ensure that we don't use that skill, right? Like, what is the free market? What is this like principle of chaos? Like, let chaos reign, except literally saying, hey, you know the one advantage that we have over all other species, which is our ability to articulate and understand abstract thought and live in an abstract area and deal with things in abstract ways and then write them down and continue to abstract upon them before we materialize them, right? A thing that I like to call planning, right? Hey, how about instead of using this one innate skill that we have that separates us from all other creatures, we don't, and just let nature decide. Like, nature gives us this gift and we literally stand around saying, let's not use it. Like, that's what we have done here in the West. Is there any reason why that our society is collapsing? Like, really think about this. Like, you have a gift. You have an innate skill, right? That allows us to actually plan things and create images of those plans and create ideas and put them on page and look at them and create models and create concepts and plans, all of this before we even begin building or manifesting it into the real world. And we're just told, nah, don't use that. No. It would be as though you just like had bags of concrete, right? And just put them in a field and said, well, a building will eventually erect over time, right? Like, we're very, very dumb people. Hey, Islam, how you doing? Good to see you. So the cases of COVID are expected to rise from 400 to 800 a day in December. Here we go again. Yep. And they're going to do fuck all about it. Stalin's wealth when he died consisted of a few hundred rubles in a bank he never spent, a collection of books, and a pair of old boots he kept with him. Yeah, like this is sort of the odd thing that no one can actually explain to me about Stalin, which is like, if he was so like power mad, right, and like hungry for power, how come he didn't actually use it to like become extravagantly wealthy or anything like the oligarchs of today? You know, like if his endeavor was just to be the leader, like it seems to me to be a very flimsy premise. Like there were many times Stalin tried to abdicate power. He literally tried to leave, right? On 4 separate occasions, no less, right? Like I just feel like there's no like how can a man both be power mad and arrogant and so short-sighted, but also extremely humble and frugal? Like it seems like there's lots of contradictions. I'm seeing lots of contradictions in the narratives surrounding Joseph Stalin. And like, and it seems to me that the people who condemn him are like absolutely convinced out of the certitude, when what it sounds like to me is a lot of backseat quarterbacking, right? A lot of like, well, he should have done, or he should have known. And it's like, how could he have possibly known, right? And then they're like, he could have known because in 1853 and during the Council of the Versailles kind of, and it's like, dude, like that's literally not how humans are. Like it's literally not how humans are. Like there's this like there's this denial of the humanity in the process of politics that I find a bit unsettling, honestly. Like our innate humanity and who we are as humans and like conflicts that we have internally with people matters a lot. Like matters a lot. Like if you don't like someone, you're not going to work with them. I just don't know why that's controversial or difficult to understand. The person was horrified of Stalin because of a Netflix series called How to Become a Tyrant, covering Joseph Stalin, Saddam Hussein, Idi Amin, Joseph Stalin, Muammar Gaddafi, Kim Dynasty. Yeah, look what they've done, right? See how cleverly done that is? Right? You take someone that literally everybody agrees is a figure of evil in the society. Like even the Germans are sitting there being like, yeah, Adolf Hitler, right? Like even the Germans. Nobody disagrees, with the exception of like literal Nazis. There's no nuance to it. Adolf Hitler was obviously an evil figure, right? Even forget about the concentration camps, which is like really all you need. But like, he was waging wars he didn't need to wage. His war against the Soviet Union was meaningless. Like, it was without purpose. It served nothing. It was just bloodlust, right? And I'm not saying that like hyperbolically or to demonize Hitler. Like, you can go read his own journals, right? You can go read the journals of Goebbels and the commanders and all this kind of stuff. They literally were just like going to destroy Russia for the conquest. Like, that's it. And like, so what they're doing is they're propping up somebody that we can all agree, right? And then from there, that gives them the credibility that they need in order to move forward and start. So, and even look at the list. Even look at the, I'm not that familiar with Idi Amin, honestly. But like, start with Adolf Hitler, then you move into Saddam Hussein, which in my view is a step down, right? And I'll sidestep him in because I don't know. But then Joseph Stalin, like Gaddafi. Like Gaddafi? Really? Gaddafi. You want to talk about Gaddafi. Like, if you are walking around saying that Gaddafi was a tyrant when he like had the full support of his people, literally overthrew a feudal monarchy in a bloodless coup, no less, right? Which, when there's a bloodless coup like this, it really is the people standing up and being like, we no longer believe you. Like, we're not gonna listen to you. And the monarchy being like, yeah, okay. Because they don't have any authority any longer. Like, even their own military doesn't take them seriously, right? So like, Gaddafi walks in, pushes over the monarchy, and like, from there, how is he a tyrant? Because he fought for socialism? Because he fought for socialist principles? Like, I almost guarantee that what they're going to do is they're going to look at moments of difficulty during the Gaddafi period, and they'll 100% just take the Western side, if not outright lie about it. The show's reasoning for that was, well, you had to have some support, so he gave them free healthcare and electricity. Like, think about how dumb that sounds, right? The guy was a tyrant because he swayed people by improving their lives. Like, that's how flimsy and stupid they are, right? Like, in a true society, people suffer and die because that's the way a society is supposed to work, I guess. Like, look at how incoherent they become, right? And incoherent is exactly where it is. Like, I've been thinking about this a lot. I used that word to describe infrared, because he's one of these Nazbol guys, and it's just an incoherent ideology that doesn't make any sense. Like it's just without logic. It's like 1 + 1 equals peanut butter sandwich. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. And this statement, well, you had to get support from people, so he gave them free healthcare and electricity, and that's how he oppressed them. He oppressed them by getting their support by giving them healthcare and electricity. What? Like, what? Like, how detached do you have to be from like the real world to actually think that this is a serious critique or a serious thing that should be taken seriously? Sounds to me like Gaddafi improved their lives and so they liked him. Like, isn't that what rulers are supposed to do? Isn't that what people are supposed to do when they're in positions of power? To like shore up their positions of power by gaining the consensus of the populace, and one of the most effective ways to do that is to improve their lives, right? Like, he's a tyrant because instead of using violence, he made everyone's lives better. What a tyrant! Yikes. Like, yikes. And so, like, and it's clearly, like, that's clearly what they've done, right? They clearly took the position that, like, modern Westerners want to demonize, like the Kim dynasty, Gaddafi, Stalin, right? Like, I'm surprised that they're not throwing Xi Jinping in there, right? Or Mao, right? The animation was good enough, so even if you don't like what they're saying, you'll like to watch them say it. Yeah. Well, and that seems to be all that matters, right? It seems it's all style. It's no substance. There's nothing there. there's nothing substantive oftentimes. And like they'll point out a fact, but they'll omit context. So like, let's say a guy kicked in the door and I got into a fist fight with him, right? Like, so he kicked in my door, right? Stranger, never met him before, maybe a drunk guy, right? Kicks in my door, I get into a fist fight with him, right? An altercation, and I throw him out of my house, right? So if I wanted to demonize me in that story, I would say, oh, he's so violent. He got into a fist fight with a guy. My buddy George, yeah. He got into a fist fight with my buddy George over like for no reason, right? There you go, demonized. Like all you got to do is admit that George kicked in my door, right? Like, and I see this all the time. Like once you also Kim Il-sung was fighting Japanese imperialism, exactly. Like here's like the most brutal lie of omission that is going on in regards to the North Korea narrative, which is that like North Korea gets fucking leveled. Like the place is rubble. Like rubble. There isn't a standing structure. Like literally they blew it apart. Right? Like, and then you have the like gall to critique their recovery, right? Which like is miraculous. Like the fact that they were able to recover and actually come back and actually do anything is pretty astounding. And then what do? We send a Vice News guy in, a Rupert Murdoch guy in, right, to do a documentary, and they treat him like right the whole time. They treat him really nicely the whole time. They're like giving him stuff. They're sending him to bars. They're like showing him the city, like all that kind of stuff. Letting him talk to people, all that, yabba yabba yabba. Like it's a perfectly acceptable like period of time, and the guy comes back being like, what a weird, strange culture. What a weird people. Like it's like deeply racist, deeply xenophobic, and like completely unwilling to accept that there are more than one way to live in the world, right? And like instead of being like, wow, these guys like there was this moment, I remember this in the documentary, where he goes and he sits in a stadium, and in North Korea they actually like there's this you know how there's like you hold up signs and then everybody's holding up one sign and then it makes a picture. So you have like 100 people and they all make like a big gigantic picture and they like flip the signs over to make like beautiful images and all this kind of stuff. Well, they show him this, right? And he's the only guy in the arena because he's the reason they're doing this for him. But like they rehearsed this shit. And his commentary on it was like, this is so surreal. And I was like, what the fuck's wrong with you, dude? Like these guys are showing you like their art form. They're showing you something that they've obviously practiced. They obviously put a lot of effort into. They obviously care about, and they're astoundingly good at it. And your commentary is like, this is weird and surreal. Like, it's only weird and surreal because you're a fucking racist. Like, that's it. Like, if this was a bunch of white boys from Wisconsin and you were sitting in a Wisconsin stadium by yourself because it's a rehearsal, right? And they showed it to you, you'd be like, wow, that's incredible. These white kids from Minnesota, absolutely unbelievable. But the commentary is like, wow, this is creepy and surreal, and like they imagine what they're doing to these people to force them to do this. Like that's the commentary. It's deeply racist, like deeply xenophobic. Because like the people that are doing it are probably proud of what they're doing, right? They're probably extremely proud of what they're doing. And like it's not surreal to watch a rehearsal. Like, just because you're alone and just because there isn't, like, a stadium full of people cheering. Like, sorry they didn't also get a stadium full of people for you, dude. Like, sorry. Like, it's and this is, like, over and over and over again you see this coming out of Vice documentaries. Where they weave a semi-convincing yarn that, like when they sent a young lady to China. Right? And the whole time she was there, she was like, They literally have her like running down an alley at one point, being like, and like it's got like a blue filter and like the music is playing and all this kind of stuff. It's like the most hackneyed, manufactured bullshit you've ever seen. And I've literally talked to people who are like, oh, China's so oppressive, and oh, look how scared she is. It's like, yeah, look how scared she's pretending to be. Like, she's in no danger whatsoever. Like, what does she think is going to happen to her? Right? Does she think she's going to get disappeared? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? If China picked up an American citizen and imprisoned them, right, it would make international headlines. The United States would use it as a Cassius belly to do other shit to them, right? Oh, and how do we know that's true? Because we went through exactly that, didn't we? Didn't we just go through exactly that? Remember the two Michaels? Remember the whole thing, that whole situation, right? Like, we literally just did that. So it's all done to manufacture and confirm the overt racism of the people watching it. And like, when you're watching it, you're like, if you are not a xenophobe, like if you think China's a pretty rad place, you're like looking at it being like, yee. And I actually have something that talks about this phenomenon and what it's actually doing to China's perspective of come on. Now we're in the old stuff. I'm gonna find it. Do it systematically. Do it systematically. Systematically. Do it completely systematically. Systematically. Please don't tell me I closed it. Got it. Finally. So imagine you grew up in China. You underwent education in China. The vast majority of your loved ones are in China. Most of your fondest memories are in China. For all its faults and pitfalls, the China you know and grew up with has also grown and improves with each passing year. Perhaps you may even be from Xinjiang, where you have witnessed violence against your friends and neighbors of all nationalities. Then you come to the United States and some bratty know-it-all would-be human rights crusader calls China the new Nazi Germany, citing a genocide in a place you know intimately well, using facts that completely contradict your own experiences, ignoring everything you say even though you lived in the place, basically implying that this bratty know-it-all would-be human rights crusader knows more about China than you do, and then advocating the complete collapse of the country. Oh, and for good measure, when a certain unknown disease crops up in your country, these bratty know-it-all would-be human rights crusaders show you no sympathy, but rather crow that this is the consequence of the oppressive and authoritarian government you have, implying that you deserve this. So in other words, no fucking shit, Sherlock. I had to personally counsel upset Chinese students because bratty know-it-all would-be human rights crusaders yelled at them, calling them brainwashed. Before March 2020, these same people were joking about COVID in front of my face. Because I guess it's funny if only Chinese people's lives are in danger. And so what this does, right, it means that any like Chinese people who come to America and experience this, because they do, right? Well, they're going to go home and they're going to realize that things are pretty good in China. And I'm going to stay in China and I'm going to use my education. And I'm not going to further the aims of these obvious, overt, xenophobic racists. I'm going to further the aims of my society that I think is going in the right direction, right? And it just fuels more and more that this reality that America is isolating itself, that the rest of the world is not going to be that interested in working with America moving forward, especially after they re-elect, honestly, any Republican. Like, I know I say Trump, but it really is any Republican. All right, let's say farewell. Let's say farewell. Today's number, man, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm going with a 6. Going with a 6. Let's go.
Here we go for today's number.
Here we go for today's number.
It's November 12, 2021. 10 balls.
Got 8 from Major.
Each ball has a number.
Mock. 3, 10.
Numbers 1 through 10.
Harry K, I don't know who you are, but
cool. The numbers.
I'm so glad you guys are here, man. I gotta tell you, I'm so glad. It's so awesome that there's this many people.
Pick a number.
It's awesome. Here we go.
Today's number is
4.
4.
Loaf. Go buy that scratch ticket, bud. Go. Enjoy the riches that have been bestowed upon you by Mr. David Lynch. So I wanted to bring this forward. Why don't more people trust the news? This is coming from the Globe and Mail. My genius amazes even me. Amazing. So the reason I wanted to bring this forward is because I found this thing to be extremely odd. Like, it's an admission from the Globe and Mail that more people don't, like, that people don't trust the news, right? But they've commissioned Deborah Soh, a sex neuroscientist, the author of The End of Gender and host of the Dr. Deborah Soh podcast, to write an article about why more people don't trust the news. So, interesting choice. Okay. A recent Gallup poll found that only 36% of U.S. adult males trust legacy media to report news fairly, accurately, and fully. So they're starting with like the fact, and they actually give you the poll, right? Unlike what CTV does. And immediately, how did we get here? Many journalists have pointed the finger at former President Donald Trump for affixing the fake news label to any coverage he didn't like. But the problem runs deeper than that, okay? The majority of mainstream news outlets have already leaned left. But so you're seeing how they're embedding it within the dynamic of left-right Trumpian politics, right? Journalists came to believe that democracy was under siege and they were leading a resistance against fascism, right? So not only did the media intentionally deceive the public about Mr. Trump throughout the presidency, so literally no commentary whatsoever against the overt and obvious complicit lies surrounding the Iraq War, right? No commentary whatsoever around refusing to actually report and accurately on what Obama was doing in the country, right? The betrayal of the Obama administration. Literally nothing like that. No. The reason why people don't trust the news is because of petty politics, right? That the news media are taking sides and they're not being objective, right? Not that they are literally lying to you constantly. This is what we like to call controlled dissent, right? They're getting a sex neuroscientist to control the narrative and say that the reason why people don't trust news media is because journalists fought too hard against Donald Trump, right? Instead of they're literally lying to you about literally everything. They lied about the Iraq War. They're lying about Xinjiang. They're lying about the Taiwan situation. They're literally liars who are paid to lie, right? They're paid by their owners. Guys like Jeff Bezos, who like owns the Washington Post, right? Guys like David Thompson, who owns Globe and Mail, right? That like, why would I ever trust any news media that was owned by the billionaire class when they're overt, obvious, complicit psychopaths, right? Like the Liberal Party, the deputy prime minister is a Nazi collaborator, right? And that's not hyperbole. Like, that's not me being like Nazi collaborator. That's literally like she gave arms and trained Nazis in Ukraine. Like, so like, why do you think? But here is at least an admission coming from the Globe and Mail that people don't trust the news. But like their rationale for it is childishness. And if you believe this, like if you actually look at this and think that this is interesting or adult or actually like worthwhile commentary from a who gives a shit source, like, oh, a sex neuroscientist, yeah, real political commentary there. Like real journalists, like real political commentarian, right? It isn't the job of reporters to impart lessons in morality. Despite an obsession with championing leftist ideas such as diversity of opinion is met with hostility and intolerance, regardless of the subject matter. Yeah, the reason why diversity has become met with hostility and intolerance is because the death cult is holding up diversity as their moral shield while refusing to actually address and talk about materialistic concerns, right? So they're strangling the left by holding up diversity shields. And if you don't go along with the diversity shield, well, then they call you a racist or a bigot or any of this kind of stuff. And so it becomes impossible to actually discuss like very simple materialistic concerns, which is why the debate in the United States is so childish. Tax the rich is this like childish slogan that is being put on like a dress at a Met Gala and like all this like incredibly childish bullshit that we're supposed to accept as actual legitimate politics. Like, no, thank you. How about we be adults, have an adult conversation about what we expect from our society? No, instead of that, it's diversity. Diversity, that's the only thing we're allowed to talk about. And if you don't go along with the diversity, then you're a bad person. Like, yeah, we're mad about it. Yeah, we're mad about it. Because there's homeless people. Have you noticed that? And guess what? There's a lot of diversity amongst those homeless people. You don't care about diversity when they're homeless, right? You only care about diversity when they're rich, right? Like that's the hard truth of it. Like they don't give a shit about diversity unless it's amongst rich people. That there needs to be more CEOs that are women and minorities. There needs to be more diversity amongst the affluent classes. They don't give a shit that there's major diversity amongst the homeless, and they don't care about that at all. Interesting, right? Interesting how that works. As you pointed out earlier, it's often misinterpretation of the narrative through admission. Yeah, no follow-up questions or pushback, as well as opinion pieces are treated as fact. Yeah. Isn't it interesting how they'll do like a Gallup poll, and they'll ask very clearly, how much do you trust your media, right? You'll get a very clear picture, like look at the decline, right? 1997, people were already at 53%. Like now it's down to like 32 at one point. And like my trust of the media is basically zero. Like when they report, I need it to be corroborated by several sources. Like I don't trust them at all. Yeah, capitalism supports diversity and poverty by putting everyone in poverty together. Wouldn't that be great? Right? Do like a commercial, like a diversity commercial, and be like, so much diversity amongst the poor. Yet they trust everything they say about China. Exactly. That's actually the first thing I say to people who are like come in here and shit on China. The first thing I say is like, hey, how much do you trust your media? Scale 1 to 10, how much do you trust your media? No one's ever gone higher than 5. Right, which bears out, right? Like nobody gives a shit, right? And then I say like, well, then why do you care about what they say about China? And then they say some other nonsense and move on, usually. So, but here's what's interesting about this. So you've commissioned a polling community in order to ask people this question, but then you don't go and ask them a very specific question that anyone could ask. Why? Hi, scale from 1 to 10, how much do you trust your news media? 3, great. Why? Click. Like they're not asking people why. So that opens the door for Deborah So, a sex neuroscientist, which I don't know why I'm supposed to give a shit about her opinion on politics when she's not a political commentator. She's not actually, like, how much does she actually know about politics? What does she know about the history of politics? Like, if you read this article, you realize very quickly that, like, she doesn't actually seem to know anything before Trump, right? She doesn't know that there was the Iraq War. She doesn't know about the Naira lie. Like, she doesn't know about any of this. And like we see a similar trend emerging north of the border, with 52% of Canadians saying they believe most news organizations are concerned with supporting an ideology or political position than with informing the public. 49% agree that journalists and reporters are purposefully trying to mislead people by saying things they know are false or gross exaggerations, right? We know they're lying. Like, we know they're lying. But, like, why? Why don't you ask them that? Interesting that you don't. Spend billions of dollars, spend millions of dollars to do these polls. Don't actually ask people why. Hey, Tinker, how you doing? Hey, Zorkin, how you doing, bud? Never ask why for anything. They just want numbers instead, easier to explain, lazy statistics. Well, and then it lets you fill in the gap, right? You can just take the number and be like, wow, this many people think this. So it must be because of this, says sex neuroscientist, unknown voice who gives a shit what she thinks, right? Hey, Tinker. Yeah, I'm doing good, bud. I'm doing good. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all doing well, man. Hope you're all doing well. I trust the local stories about traffic and weather. The rest I'm skeptical of. Yeah, and even then, they're only right about 50% of the time when it comes to the weather. Like they're only really right as like you might as well just trust a coin flip. This brings to mind Let's Go Brandon. I love Let's Go Brandon, dude. I do. I wish that the left would lighten up and just get on board. Like, Let's Go Brandon is hilarious. Like, it is. It's hilarious. And, like, and nobody on the left wants to admit that embedded in Let's Go, it's not that they're saying fuck Joe Biden. They clearly are. But it's so obviously a media moment when the media is, like, obfuscating and lying directly in front of your face. Like, that's what it's about. It's about reminding people that the media will lie to you, right? That and I actually think there's like a cleverness to it, and it makes sense that it actually like caught on, because everybody understood. It's like it's not just they're saying fuck Joe Biden. They're saying, look, our media apparatus lies in front of our faces directly, like straight in front of us. Like we literally were chanting fuck Joe Biden, and she said they're saying let's go Brandon. Like these people want to speak for themselves. They want their voices to be heard. They're tired of being pushed into the corners in reasons that are condescending and pedantic as far as they're concerned, right? Like they want, and most importantly, and this is what's most important, they want their lives to be easier. They want things to improve for them. Like many of these people have experienced or know people who have experienced like major poverty, like a major decline in the quality of their life, right? And to pretend like they haven't is criminal in my view. Like it's journalistic malpractice. If you're living in a red state, your quality of life has declined significantly, right? And they keep voting Republican because the Republican Party is smart enough to tell them, hey, we're going to try to improve that for you. What's the Democratic Party saying? Oh, you're a bunch of degenerates. Who are you going to vote for? Right? And they're not dumb. They're not like sitting there being like, that's 100% going to happen. But don't get me wrong. Like if you go talk to the kooks, sure. But like the vast majority of people are like, okay, well, what are we going to pick? We're going to pick the guy that's actually saying, we know you're having a tough time. We know stuff is going wrong for you. We're going to try to help you. Vote Republican. Or are you going to vote for the guy that's like, you're just a bunch of racist, xenophobic degenerates. Get the fuck out of our faces. Right? Grow up. Like, how do you think that's going to go? How do you think that's going to go? You know? Okay, buddy. I know. You got so much peanut butter, dude. Oh, and then, of course, here's the moment where I realize that I say grow up all the time. But I'm not running for office, so. And I mean, people need to grow up. It's just like, we need to grow up along materialist lines. Like, the idea that we're not having conversations, like legitimate conversations about how, like, hey, maybe material conditions should improve. It's always like abstract. It's always very like philosophical or like rooted in like thought patterns or any of this kind of stuff. But the second you bring up like, yeah, like poor people are desperate and do desperate things. Oh, you communists, and Stalin killed 100 billion people with a famine. Justin Trudeau calls for clearing cyberspace of hate, disinformation at internet panel. I mean, given that these guys are Nazi collaborators, I'm sure their intentions are perfectly pure, right? That's really my position on it. Like, I'm sure that their intentions are perfectly pure. Not that they're actually doing anything about it. Yeah, so Justin gonna delete all his social media or what exactly? No, what I'm concerned about, right, is not that Trudeau will pass something like Bill C-10, right? That like Bill C-10 will get passed and then tyranny, because Bill C-10 was never about that. Like it was a completely different conversation that didn't get talked about or reported on, and everybody's like, Justin Trudeau clamping down on my freedom of speech. It's like literally not what it was at all. But what I'm more concerned about is a trade deal, right? Like an international trade deal like NAFTA that will contain in it abilities to censor, right? That's how our politicians are pushing this stuff through. Like the neoliberal period occurred because of a trade deal, right? That sidesteps the traditional form of governance, right? They erected a new government essentially through these trade deals that got to impose its will on our nations, and that's more or less what I expect them to do with this kind of stuff. That they're not going to push legislation through the House saying, take away people's ability to post tweets and shit like this, but they might put it in a trade deal. Right? They might agree to a trade deal. So, a guide to the ruling class's domination and destruction of Canadian media. I'm going to read this one. This comes from Read the Maple, which is another source that I'm really starting to love. Right, this Breach Media, Jacobin, there's one more that I'm blanking. Canada Files is another good one. Have steadily become like must-read kind of stuff. So, a guide to the ruling class's domination and destruction of Canadian media. News coverage in the opinion journalism of the largest newspapers in Canada has now been weaponized and monetized by the owners. By Sam Smart. Local news begins to disappear. Coverage on important issues wanes. Year after year, headlines emerge about which media giant is buying smaller outlets. Readers encounter the same stories in several community papers, only to discover the publications are all owned by the same company. What gives? In 1970, the Davie Commission report stated that what matters is the fact that control of the media is passing into fewer and fewer hands, and that experts agree that this trend is likely to continue and perhaps accelerate. John Miller, professor emeritus and former chair of the School of Journalism at X University, told the Maple that the time of the Davie report's publication was an era of public-minded journalism. Even though many of the newspapers were making lots of money, they had at their helm publishers and editors who came up through journalism and had this spirit of public service, said Miller. Davie wrote a very powerful report that made a series of recommendations, and none of them are put into effect. A very early newspaper chain in Canada was the Southam chain, founded at the turn of the 20th century. In a 1950 Maclean's article, the head of the Southam Ottawa Bureau is quoted as saying, "Don't call us a chain, that's a fighting word." Maclean's states that Southam's papers all varied greatly in their editorial decisions, endorsed different parties, and had differing opinions on social issues across the board. It was a very public-minded corporation. They were interested in journalistic values, in good journalism, in training, said Miller. However, other chains weren't seen so favorably. The Irving family, New Brunswick News. The Davie report paid particular attention to New Brunswick because the Irving family controlled all the daily newspapers in New Brunswick and was a penny-pinching outfit, said Miller. After the Davie report was released, more of the forewarned concentration of media occurred, and the federal government appointed former journalist and academic Tom Kent to chair a royal commission on newspapers. The Kent Commission report in 1981 proposed legislation in many areas of ownership, proposing to require regional monopolies to dissolve, prohibiting ownership of 2 or more newspapers with 75% or more of the circulation in an area. The report specifically named the infamous Irving family as an example. K.C. Irving, the Irving that started it all, built up that family's brand through the 20th century and led the family to become the 8th wealthiest family in Canada in 2017. With their corporate reach extending to everything from oil and gas to retail stores to sea transport to print media, the list goes on. To this day, the Irving family still runs almost every print publication in New Brunswick under the company Brunswick News Incorporated. In a 2014 Canada Land episode about the Irvings, journalist Jacques Poitras said, "It is very hard to get a bigger picture on how they operate because they are very private. Their holdings are private, they don't have to disclose anything to shareholders, and they have been for decades, for generations of Irvings, kind of impenetrable to journalists. The Irvings' interests have reached the papers they owned before. A 2016 National Observer article stated that in the 1960s, K.C. Irving used his newspapers to help oust Liberal Premier Louis Robichaud from power. Politicians connected to the Irving family include Liberal MP Dominic LeBlanc, who was told by the Federal Ethics Commissioner in 2016 to avoid decisions involving the Irvings due to his friendship with Jim Irving, as well as conservative New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs, who worked high up at Irving Oil for 33 years. When it comes to where their money goes, the National Post reported that the Irving family was the biggest political donator in New Brunswick between 2007 and 2015, donating just over $130,000 to the 3 major parties, with most going to the Progressive Conservative Party. Of course, concentrated regional media ownership isn't just restricted to New Brunswick. Black Press Community Media. Black Press, founded by David Holmes Black, owns over 170 publications in BC, Alberta, all 3 territories, Washington State, Hawaii, California, and Alaska. In BC and Alberta, Black Press owns a large swath of local papers. This year, Canada Land spoke to former Black press journalists who said they had been instructed to report police pressers as gospel, write stories with just 1 or 2 sources, and were told that if they got on Black Press's bad side, finding a job in BC would be hard. They also said that they had to file 4 to 5 stories a day. Editorial control has also been blurry with Black Press publications. In 1999, David Black came out strongly against the Nisga's Treaty, the first modern treaty in BC meant to give the Nisga'a control over their land, and was accused of prohibiting Black Press papers from running pro-Nisga'a Treaty content. Since 2012, Black has been proposing an oil refinery in Kitimat, consulting with Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, who was then leader of the opposition, and then Conservative Party leader Andrew Scheer, both of whom expressed positive sentiments about the pitch. Black has claimed the plan would be better for the environment than the Trans Mountain Pipeline. When it comes to political donations, Black's executive assistant told the CBC in 2020 that he feels obligated not to contribute to political campaigns. However, Elections BC records shows that Black Press donated $3,500 to the BC Liberal Party in 2016, as well as other donations, varying amounts back dating to 2005. Making it. Can West. Historically, another major player in Canadian media was Can West, founded by Israel Izzy Asper in the 1970s. Before that, Asper was leader of the Manitoba Liberal Party. Notably, Can West owned Global TV and acquired Southam in 2000 from Hollinger International Incorporated, run by Conrad Black, the founder of the National Post. Back in 2000, Asper and Black discussed plans to buy the Globe and Mail and merge it with the National Post. According to the Tyee article published in 2007, the pair also planned a strategic alliance with Shaw and Rogers. At Can West, there was a very direct interference, said Miller. They began national editorials advocating for things that the Aspers personally wanted, and some very conservative editorials started appearing in all their newspapers, the same editorials across the country. As well, a 2001 column in the National Post written by Asper's son, David, defended then Liberal Prime Minister Jean Chrétien amid the Shawanagate scandal. Chrétien was accused of being in a conflict of interest when he helped get his friend a loan to go towards the hotel next to a golf course that Chrétien had shares in. David argued that coverage, including the National Post's, of Shawanagate had been unfair. The Tyee noted that Chrétien was a family friend of Izzy Asper. CanWest eventually went bankrupt and sold its newspapers to Post Media in 2010, while Global TV went to Shaw Media. Post Media was founded in 2010 and led by Paul Godfrey, CEO of the National Post. He was elected as an alderman in North York in 1964 and was asked to run the Toronto Sun in 1984. He eventually became president of CEO of Toronto Sun Publishing Group in 1991, becoming CEO the following year. He was also CEO of the Toronto Blue Jays from 2000 to 2008. Godfrey is a conservative. He was a CEO of Post Media when the company instructed 4 of its Alberta papers to endorse then-Premier Jim Prentice and the Alberta Progressive Conservative Party during the 2015 provincial election. As well, many Post Media papers had full front-page political ads from the Conservative Party of Canada in the 2015 federal election. Around the same time, multiple Post Media papers ran editorials endorsing the Conservatives. The decision to carry the endorsement in the Edmonton Journal was made by the paper's owners, rather than the editorial team, according to a tweet by Paula Simons, a writer for the Journal at the time. According to a recent Passage article, all Post Media-owned papers studied have endorsed the Conservatives at every election from the media's country's inception until today. Post Media is now owned by hedge funds, with the American firm Chatham Asset Management owning approximately 66% of its shares. Leon Cooperman, an American billionaire and hedge fund manager, owns approximately 14%, and German hedge fund Allianz owns 18%. Media are being financialized and bought up largely by hedge funds, which are only interested in making a profit. They don't really care too much about journalism. Mark Edge, a journalist, academic, and author, told The Maple, "It's just a means to an end, and that end, of course, is making money. As a result, journalism is being squeezed for every possible penny of profit." The New York Times reported that since Chatham acquired their majority of shares, Post Media laid off many workers, cut salaries and benefits, closed papers nationwide, and centralized editorial operations. Layoffs continued during COVID, leaving journalists out of work and saving Post Media money during one of the worst economic crises of our lifetimes. Post Media is currently Canada's largest newspaper chain, owning more than 120 media brands nationwide. Telecommunications goes into media. Edge said a major movement in Canadian media with the creation of the internet was the phenomenon of convergence. The theory was that the internet, digital media, all media, were going to converge into one medium online, said Edge. There would be no more newspapers, no more radio, no more television. All of their content would be delivered online, digitally. This was a bit of a harebrained scheme. Edge said that after the internet bubble burst, the plan came crashing down within about 10 years in Canada. An example he gives is the merger between the Globe and Mail and CTV, dubbed CTV Globe Media, which was then bought by Bell and dissolved once Woodbridge bought majority ownership of the Globe in 2010. Convergence left Canadian news media in ruins. We've been trying to pick up the pieces ever since, said Edge. Even though it couldn't hold onto the Globe, Bell Media still owns CTV as well as 109 radio stations. Its controversial acquisition of Astral Media in 2012 gave Bell a much higher concentration of radio ownership, an estimated 45% of listening time, according to the Huffington Post. In 2015, the Globe and Mail reported that then-president of Bell Media, Kevin Krull, attempted to intervene in CTV's reporting on a CRTC decision to unbundle cable packages. Krull eventually apologized for this. Bell isn't the only telecom company to buy up news media. When CanWest's newspaper went to Post Media in 2010, The rest of CanWest Media assets went to Shaw Media, a subsidiary of telecom giant Shaw Communications. Shaw Media formed after buying a major stake in CanWest as it went under, and acquired global TV stations across the globe. The billionaire Shaw family has a history of conservative political support. According to Elections Canada, J.R. Shaw donated $2,000 to the Conservative Party in 2015, as well as Shaw Communications Inc. has donated a total of $165,475 to the BC Liberals, a party dominated by federal conservative influence, from 2005 to 2017, according to Elections BC. In 2016, Chorus Entertainment acquired Shaw Media. Chorus now owns all global TV stations, 40 radio stations, and many TV entertainment channels. 2 Shaw family members sit on the Chorus board of directors. Another major telecom with stakes in media is Rogers, which currently owns City TV, Omni, and 82 radio stations and podcasts across Canada. Toronto Mayor and former Ontario Progressive Conservative Party leader John Tory once served as CEO of Rogers Media and is an advisor for the Rogers Trust today, making the family's recent drama even more messy, according to The Star. Rogers and Bell were both some of the biggest political donors in several provinces as of 2020, according to the National Post. Local effects of mass media. Miller sees the current state of media ownership as cannibalistic. They're chewing away bone marrow of their own properties in order to make them a profit. So the whole public service aspect of journalism has sort of taken a back seat, said Miller. The trend is also resulting in shuttering publications in news deserts and smaller communities across Canada, says Miller. While some communities have produced new online outlets, he explained, the overall quality of journalism has been lost. They're trying to do the job, but they just don't have the resources to cover communities the way newspapers did in their heyday, when they were properly funded, properly led, said Miller. You have fewer jobs, fewer journalists on the ground chasing stories. Edge notes that there is also a loss of competition in journalism when chains buy up local papers. Competition is vital for journalism, said Edge. If you don't have competition, you only have one source of news, and George Orwell had a name for that. Edge is also troubled by another aspect of chain ownership. Milo is also troubled by another aspect of chain ownership. News coverage and the opinion journalism of the largest newspapers in Canada has now been weaponized and monetized by the owners, said Edge. This is a trend that was started by Conrad Black in the mid-1990s when he took over the former Southam newspaper chain, which he felt was much too liberal. Edge explained that once Black sold the Southam chain to Asper, it became even more conservative. By following the trends from the 1960s to where we are now, this is not leading in a very good direction. Last year, Nordstar Capital purchased Torstar, which owns the Toronto Star, a long-standing pro-liberal publication, along with a slew of other assets, some of which have been sold off for $60 million. At the time of sale, Nordstar's principals, Jordan Bitove and Paul Rivet, promised to maintain the Star's progressive positions. At the same time, Canada Land pointed out last year, the new owners have extensive records of making donations to Conservatives, including to Ontario Premier Doug Ford, failed federal Conservative leadership candidate Maxime Bernier, now leader of the far-right People's Party, and current Tory leader Aaron O'Toole. Sam Smart is a Vancouver-based freelance journalist. She has a degree in English literature from UBC, where she served as blog and opinion editor at the UBC. Follow her on Twitter, @UglyBlender. I mean, I suspect that she would be an ugly blender. You know, if I was a blender and I looked at a human, I would think, that's an ugly blender. And yeah, I know, right? They can't stay away from the 1984 references. Like, for God's sakes, guys, there are other books. Like, there's other things that have been written on the subject of state oppression. Like, no, I mean, 1984 is, like, so easy because we all read it in school, right? And, like, They got us when we were at our least critical and told us what it was about, and even though it's like not about what it's about, like, they just can't stay away from it. It's like it's like why not just like reference Hamlet? I feel like every article needs to reference Hamlet somehow. Anyway, and like, oh yeah, I wonder why people don't trust news media, eh? Like we were just talking about that, right? Why don't people trust news media? Could be because it's owned by like 5-6 people, right? Like that fact alone. Like, why don't you trust the media? Because only 6 people own it? Like, yeah. Why would you trust it? This reads like a list of villains. Great research and context. A cabal of Moriartys. Sith Lord Conrad Black is a ghoul. Death cult alert. Yeah, that's a good point, Eric. I guess a real good point. Like, it is like this like laundry list of like Canadian villains, right? Like Conrad Black is like one of the most villainous figures in Canadian history, for God's sakes. Like, just an unbelievably rapacious ghoul. Oh, isn't that right? Isn't that right? And the Irvings, right? Like, yes, I know. I'm surprised that David Thompson doesn't get talked about. Reconnection successful. Reconnection successful. Well, and also like, hold on. Orwell's unknown forward. Is it forward? Yeah. In 1945, George Orwell's Introduction to Animal Farm, it was not printed and remained unknown till now. It appears here under Orwell's title. Right? So, is this... Hold on. Because it's actually quite... Sorry, give me a second. I just want to make sure I've got the right... Come on. Why not just show me the friggin'... Okay, buddy, I know. Orwell's Introduction to Animal Farm. Yeah, just show me the introduction. Like, I don't need to... No thanks. They're working really hard to make sure that I can't actually see this thing, right? Like, why not just like publish it in full? Why are we dicking around? I mean, I know why we're dicking around, but what the heck is this? What is going on? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Like this genuinely should not be this difficult, right? Like, you see how hard they're working to make sure nobody can actually read this introduction. Oh my God. Oh my God. Forget it. Basically, if you actually find the introduction to Animal Farm, right, what you find is that he was more interested in it as a commentary of his own nation, right? That it's driving me fucking crazy that, like, just give me the full text. Orwell's Introduction, Animal Farm, full text. Like, this shouldn't be this tough. Like, it really, really should just, like, pop up and be there. Like, it's so fucking annoying. Like, occasionally, yeah, we continue. Well, then, there it is. How about you just show it to me? Can I just, like... Of course. Right? Look how hard. Like, how Orwellian of them. Right? How Orwellian of them. Like, and then it'll give you an extract from the letter, right? Yeah, this is great. I think the choice of pigs ruling the castle will get offense, particularly to anyone who's a bit touchy, as undoubtedly the Russians are. But then, like, after that, he talks about how it applies to his own country, right? Like, that's what's so interesting about this. How they're working, like, it seems like they're working really, really hard to keep me. And this just goes right into the. This is weird, straight up. Like, this is very, very weird. Like, I feel like I should literally be able to, like, click on anything. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, and my thing keeps disconnecting. Isn't that fun? Isn't that how Orwellian? George Orwell, Introduction, Animal Farm. Like, why is this so hard? What's going on? Try Google Scholar? What the heck is Google Scholar? Cut. Google Scholar. Oh, I know, buddy. Isn't life hard? Yeah, this is going to give you, like, the text. No, but this is, like, yeah, exactly. Like, it's down and out in Paris and London are Orwell's an amazing take on his own experience living in destitution in the early 30s. No, like, this is what I'm talking about. It's like they're Orwelling Orwell, right? That they're taking Orwell's work and they're using a form of, like, doublespeak in order to co-opt even Orwell himself. That I actually do think that if George Orwell were to see what is being done with his work, he would understand fully that this is what his critique is about. That they're taking his work and using it in opposition to what he intended it. Right? It is like a form of newspeak. Maybe just straight up the Wikipedia article, like reception analysis. Like, the thing that's interesting about this story is that introduction. Orwell's essay criticized British self-censorship by the press, specifically the suppression of unflattering descriptions of Stalin and the Soviet government. Yeah. Like, I just feel like it should be way easier to find this, right? It should be way easier to find this. And, like, yeah, again, like, even if George Orwell wrote these books about the Soviet Union, right? Like, why am I being taught a fictional allegorical account of what happened instead of actually what happened, right? Like, this is the oddness of it, if you ask me. That even if George Orwell's account of the story is accurate in terms of allegory, it's a bit strange that I'm being taught Animal Farm instead of the actual history of what happened in the Soviet Union. Like, that's what's extremely odd. And I mean, so much of the education system is extraordinarily odd. Like, the more you actually think about it, the more you actually analyze the trauma of being forced through an institution for 12 years against your will, right? Like, it's a trauma that we experienced as a people. It's a mass trauma. And the further away you get from it, the easier it is to turn back at it, analyze it as the traumatic experience that it absolutely was for all of us, and begin to comment on things like, wow, we didn't learn anything, right? Isn't it interesting how we basically didn't learn anything? Like, we learned how to read, We learned how to write. We learned math, right? And that was all very important. But like from like essentially grade 8 forward, we didn't learn anything, right? We were reading books like George Orwell's Animal Farm instead of like the actual history of what occurred, right? We were being jammed full of like how to do like calculus and trigonometry when we weren't taught how to do taxes, right? Like we were taught like the history of some abstract period of time that we all forgot, but we're not taught how the government works, right? We're taught about we'll read like Hamlet 17 times, but we won't actually like have a conversation about what money is, right? Like we're not really taught anything in school. Not really. Nothing that we hang on to, nothing that really matters. And we're not taught like how to plant or how to garden or how to do any of this stuff. Like we end up reading these books that when you look in retrospect, like even if you want to believe that Animal Farm was a good book, right? Well, don't you find it a bit odd that we didn't actually read anything about the history of the Soviet Union, right? Don't you find that a bit strange? Like here we are reading an allegorical story about it, but we don't know what the actual history is. It's very creepy and weird. It's very unsettling. Like the more I talk about it, the more I'm just like, and then to teach us a book like 1984, like unironically, while simultaneously doing things like that, is very, very like you really, really gotta like bow your head and just like not pay attention and not think too hard, right? And to understand that like what's being done to you is a form of newspeak, right? Like you are absolutely subserviating yourself to a system and a structure that is willing to teach you at length satirical analogies of history, but not teach you history. Yeah, imagine learning math only from allegories. Exactly. Like, and like, but so it just tells you straight out, like they're not interested in actually teaching you what actually happened or the history of any of it. They want you in the club. They want you to make sure that you're just saying like communism is bad. That's what they want. And like near as I can tell, that's literally all grade 9, 10, and 11 was for, right? That like grades like 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 exist so that they can keep you kind of caged while you go through this period of puberty, so that they can ensure that you have like you're controlled in at least a little way, and so that they can siphon away the obedient from the disobedient, right? That's really what that period of time is for. Like that's why they're going to teach you like Thomas Hardy's work, right? Which is some of the worst stuff ever written. Period. Objectively. Like Thomas Hardy's like Tess of the Dubervilles and this kind of shit. Like and how they're like, yes, the red ribbon represents, and it's like shut the fuck up. It's a terrible book. Like it's a terrible book that's badly written. And like we're being taught it as if it's important, right? Or as if it matters at all, as if it has something important to say, right? Like and it doesn't. It's completely irrelevant. And like if we ever do touch on Dickens, it's shown to us in this like it's not shown within the confines of Capital, right? Like we're not taught about Dickens as if he was a social commentator commenting on the world of capitalism and what capital will do to the world around it, right? You're never introduced to Blake in any serious way, right? Like, and this is the reason why nobody connects with any of this literature, by the way, right? The reason why no one connects with literature from the like 17th century or any of that kind of stuff is because we don't talk about it within the confines of a materialistic understanding of what was going on during the period of time, right? And it's the same reason nobody gives a shit about the Bible, Like, nobody understands the material conditions of the day. Nobody understands the material conditions of what was going on, and nobody understands how those material conditions have been and can become real again. Right? Like that, we don't want to admit it. We don't want to care about that. And so, yeah, of course, if you like decontextualize even something like Dickens from its historical content, and disconnect the reader from their historical understanding of where they are in the world, of course they're not going to give a shit. Grapes of Wrath was a good one we went through in my high school, grade 10 or 11. I mean, Grapes of Wrath, like, it's rich people complaining about being rich. Like, oh, the rich people. Like, I don't give a fuck about you and the like these fucking, like, who gives a shit? Like, that was Tessa de Duberville. It was like, Mr. Rich Darby and the Darby rich man. And then I was a rich woman who had rich problems. And then the rich problems came. And there was this rich concern. And there's, like, literally children being sent down coal shafts. Like, why aren't we talking more about, like, how kids are being sent down coal shafts and shit like that? Like, why aren't we talking more about that shit? Like, and, like... And because we're not taught about what capitalism actually is, when we watch a movie like Oliver Twist or something, like it might as well just be a fantasy world to us. Like, it's not. It might as well just be a movie about, like, being in space. Like, who cares? It's so disconnected. They teach that United Kingdom started the War of 1812 and the DPRK started the Korean War. Yeah, like. Medical schools should use the novelization of Osmosis Jones. But in the end, it's all just about, like, here's the book that we're going to give you, right? Read it. Write an essay about it. And the whole time you're doing it, you're thinking, what's the point of this? Without realizing that the point is simply that you do it, right? The point is simply that you do what you're told. And the people who do what they're told the most effectively are the people who get the best grades. That's how the system is structured. And that's the point of grade 9, 10, 11, 12. 4 years of your life dedicated to doing what you're told, right? To ensure that, like, the system of education carries through into your professional life. And if you rebel, right, because you're going through puberty and you're realizing that this is all kind of fucking bullshit and you're working against it, well, then they just show you the door, right? Oh yeah, off you go. Yeah. I mean, it's true. All that stuff is just a fantasy. There's no real connection between our current situation and the story without being given the context. Exactly. And, like, something, and I really comment on this, like, with Dickens. Dickens is the big one because Dickens was overtly anti-capitalist, right? Like, he wasn't fucking around. Like, he wasn't walking around being like, capitalism's the greatest system ever, obviously. Like, even something that we consider to be somewhat innocuous, like A Christmas Carol, right? Like, what is A Christmas Carol if not, like, an anti-capitalist tract, right? Like, literally, like, a rich capitalist getting scared by ghosts into being nice. Like, that's what it's about. And if you remove capitalism from the conversation, and, like, you don't teach kids what they're walking into, right? We don't teach kids what capitalism is, right? We don't teach kids about this. We just expect them to walk out and we say, like, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? What job do you want to do? How are you going to fit into the capitalist superstructure, right? And if you say something that makes them think they're not going to fit into the capitalist structure, they try to guide you to a direction that's going to make you fit into the capitalist structure, right? And they do so believing that they're doing you a favor, right? Because don't you want a good job and, like, don't you want benefits and all this kind of crazy shit? And because they have no analysis of the capitalist system themselves, right? All they're doing is just throwing you into a thresher. Like, they say that the far left and the far right both caused slavery, ignoring that slavery is still legal in the supposed centrist U.S. and the pressure of socialist-centered serfdom. Yeah, and that's cute. Like, the far left caused slavery? When? Like, when? For real. Like, when? Like, the far right literally had slaves. Like, the far right is like people like the Confederates in the South, right? Like, they literally owned and defended and fought for slavery. Not just for slaves, but for slavery itself as a concept. Like, I've never seen anything like that from the far left. Like, where are the slave camps from the communists? Who did the communists enslave? Right? Like, what are you even talking about? I remember third grade elementary school, we were being taught about the pioneers. Yeah, let's celebrate settler colonialism. Yeah. That's that Western civilization we're supposed to uphold, right? Buckles on our hat and buckles on our hat in Turkey, right? Yeah. If you can't tell, I can talk a lot about our education system. Like, it takes some people a little while to understand how serious I am when I say that there isn't one credible institution in our society. I'm dead serious about that. Like, there isn't a single credible institution, and I lay the gauntlet down and challenge anyone to show me a credible institution in this society. Right? It doesn't exist. Maybe like, I think the closest that I can find is a strip joint. I think a strip joint is the only credible institution left in Canada because it doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is, right? They follow the rules. They do everything they can to abide and be law-abiding citizens. But at the end of the day, it's a place where people can go, interact with naked women, right, and drink. It doesn't pretend to be anything other than that, and it delivers on its promises. No other institution can say the same in Canada. Not one. I remember being asked in grade 1 what I wanted to be when I grew up. I said a Jeep. Brilliant. You wanna jet set across the world, right? Have adventures, right? Be like rugged looking. Yeah. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. There are worse fates. They let Osama bin Laden's right-hand man out of Belmarsh prison on house arrest, but they won't let Julian Assange out. What does that tell you? What does that tell you indeed? 1970s. If I work enough hours, I can buy a house. 2020s. If I work enough jobs, I can afford rent. Yeah, North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. Absolutely. Like, I mean, for God's sakes, the United States has said that it refuses to work with the Hague. It's said that it refuses to it refuses to abide by decisions from the Hague. Right? The Hague has called it a terrorist organization for obvious reasons, because it is. Like, the future of America is isolation. Like, very, very straightforwardly, people are going to realize no one wants to work with these terrorists. Halifax landlords lose bid to evict tenant who refused 37% increase. Little bit of good news, right? Landlords who attempted to force a 37% raise increase on a single mother during the pandemic have lost in court. I find that there is nothing in the evidence before me that supports the landlord's position that they in good faith have made this application, right? It is, in my submission, completely inappropriate and contrary to the legislation, that is to say against the law, to attempt to what is described as negotiate with a tenant for a higher amount, because any residential tenant is currently legally justified in relying upon the 2% cap. Major. Well, I'm in a wheelchair now, so I'm pretty much a Jeep. Well, okay, that's a great way of looking at it, bud. I love that, right? You're wheeling around, you got adventures, right? Like, yeah, kick ass. Go to town. You just need to put like a tire on the back, right? Just put a tire on the back, Jeep. Forgive me if I'm going too far, okay, Major? I'm feeling a little... I'm glad you're here, bud. Doug Ford announces new highway that will exclusively deliver money to property development donors. Yeah, just deliver the money to property development donors. Like, I love this from the Beaverton, because that's what this is. Like, they're just nailing it. Like, the Beaverton is always on point. I'm always very impressed with the Beaverton. All right. It's a bit late in the game. But I'm going to play some tunes. Anybody have any requests? Anything anybody wants to hear? Oh, knobby tires and wear a really big headlight. And make sure, whenever you park your chair anywhere, that one wheel is always up on a curb, right? You gotta make sure that one wheel is always up on a curb. If you're not, then you're not really a Jeep, right? You know what? I definitely want to do this. That's what I want to do. I'm feeling like a little silly, right? And what I love about this song is that singing it is a little silly, but I feel like I sing it really well, right? How's this go again? There it is. Oh, baby, baby, how was I supposed to know? Something wasn't right here. Oh, pretty baby, I shouldn't have let you go. Now you're out of sight, and show me how you want it to be. Tell me, babe, I need to know now what we got. My loneliness is killing me. I must confess, I still believe. When I'm not with you, I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me, baby, one more time. Oh, pretty baby, the reason I breathe is you. Girl, you got me flying. Oh, baby, baby, there's nothing that I wouldn't do. Not the way I planned it. Show me how you want it to be. Tell me, babe, I need to know now what we got. My loneliness is killing me. I must confess, I still believe. When I'm not with you, I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me, baby, 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 one more time. Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. That's just some good, clean American fun right there. So glad to hear that Britney Spears has been freed. She's been released from the clutches of her father. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. Look at those blonde pigtails fly. Exactly. I'm really curious to know what Britney Spears is going to do now. Now that she actually has like a little bit of freedom, I'll be so curious to see what she backs, like see what projects she gets involved in. All right. This one goes to anybody who's had their heart broken. My girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pine, where the sun don't ever shine. I would shiver the whole night through. My would shiver the whole night through. Her husband was a working man, just about a mile from here. They found his head by the driving wheel, but his body was never found. Oh, my girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pine, where the sun don't ever shine. I would shiver the whole night through. My girl, where will you go? I'm going where the cold wind blows. In the pine, where the sun don't ever shine. I would shiver the whole night through. Her husband was a working man, just about a mile from here. They found his head by the driving wheel, but his body was never found. My girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? That's a fucking kick-ass tune, dude. That's a fucking kick-ass tune. That's just like reaching down into like the balls of a man and just pulling them out and showing them to you. That song's kick-ass. That song's super fucking kick-ass. I'm gonna play Black Hole Sun. Yeah, man, I think so too. Like, anytime I've heard anybody do that song, they go in the wrong direction with it, right? That, like, obviously Kurt Cobain, like, pulled his heart out and showed it to all of us with that tune. And anytime I hear anybody play it, they make it, like, cute, or they try to make it, like, cool. You know, that's the worst. When people actually are just like, no, make it like slick and sleek and cool. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that song is about a man confronting his lover after she's murdered someone. Like, that's not cool. Like, that's heartrending. Like, to think anything else is to completely, like, it'd be like playing Hallelujah, but making it like a funk pop song. Like, shut the fuck up. Don't embarrass yourself. All right. The reason why I keep going back to this one, by the way, is that I feel as though something cool or interesting is going to manifest from it eventually. And it hasn't yet. Right? Like, when I play covers, I want the cover to be not better than the original, but like truer to myself in some way. And I feel that this song can get there, and it's not there yet. So I keep playing it in the hopes that maybe the spirit of Chris Cornell will come down, descend upon me, and we'll sing this song together. In my eyes, indisposed, in disguises no one knows, hides the face, lies the snake, the sun in my disgrace. Boiling heat, summer stench, 'neath the black the sky looks dead. Call my name through the cream and you'll hear me scream again. Black old sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black old sun, won't you come, won't you come, won't you come? Stuttering, cold and damp, steal the warm wind, tired friend. Times are gone for honest men, sometimes far too long for snakes. In my shoes, a walk and sleep. In my youth I pray to keep heaven sent hell away. No one sings like you anymore. Black old sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black old sun, won't you come, won't you come? Black old sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black old sun, won't you come, won't you come, won't you come? Yeah, I just feel like every time I play this song, I feel like I'm going up to the door. Like with the other covers that I do, I feel like I go to the door and I open the door and I step through and I say hello to the original creator and producer and writer, and I say thank you for contributing and thank you for who you are, and here's my version. And they always look at me and they go like thumbs up, wow, interesting, like a cool take or something like that. And with this song, I feel like I go up to the door, I put my hand on the door, and the door won't open. But I can feel that on the other side, someone's listening. And when I finish, the light behind the door goes out. And there's just silence. And it's not a rejection. But it's not letting me in. And so I keep going back. Because there's something here that is deeper, and I know that it is there. It would sound cool read as poetry. In my eyes, indisposed, in disguises no one knows, hides the face, lies the snake, the sun in my disgrace. Boiling heat, summer stench, 'neath the black the sky looks dead. Call my name through the cream, and I'll hear you scream again. Black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black hole sun, won't you come? Won't you come? Won't you come? stuttering, cold and damp. Steal the warm wind, tired friend. Times are gone for honest men, and sometimes far too long for snakes. In my shoes a walking sleep, and my youth I pray to keep. Heaven sent hell away, no one sings like you anymore. Black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black hole sun, won't you come? Won't you come? Won't you come? It does sound cool as poetry, dude. That's cool. That's cool. Anyway, let's do here's one that I don't do all the time, because I'm forgetting the name of it, of course. And you could hear a pin drop, yeah, or a pug lick a bone. Yeah, that's what I heard the whole time. I'm like sitting over here saying this, and like my pug is like. Oh, that's what it was, Billie Jean. Of course. Now I always forget what capo I put this on, so forgive me if I start and then stop and then re-capo. yeah, right. Like you guys are like, and you could hear the pin drop, and I'm just. Let's put it on 3. Let's put it on 3. So again, this cover was inspired by Chris Cornell. Chris Cornell did this first, and I love it. Always told me don't care for what you do. Don't go around bringing young girls home. My mama's gonna because the lie becomes the truth. Okay. She was more like a beauty queen. No, that's gonna be horrible. That's gonna be horrible. Sorry. She was more like a beauty queen from a movie scene. I said, don't mind, but what do you mean? I am the one who will dance on the floor in the round. She said, I am the one who will dance on the floor in the round. She told me her name was Billie Jean as she made a scene, and every head turned with eyes that dreamed of being the one who will dance on the floor in the round. Well, people always told me, be careful what you do. Don't go around breaking young girls' days and 40 nights the law was on her side. But who can stand when she's in demand? Her schemes and plans, 'cause we danced on the floor in the round. So take my strong advice, just remember to always think twice. She told my baby we danced till 3, then she looked at me, then showed a photo. My baby cried, his eyes looked like mine. Go on, dance on the floor in the round. Well, people always told me, be careful what you do. Don't go around breaking young girls' hearts. She came and stood right by me in the smell of sweet perfume. This happened much too soon, yeah. She brought me to a room, but Billie Jean, she's not my lover. She's just a girl who claims that I am the one, but the kid is not my son. She claims I am the one, but the kid is not my son. Billie Jean, oh, Billie Jean. I give my performance maybe a C+, honestly. I think it's because I'm on the wrong capo. I had it uncapoed, I did on the 3rd. I should capo it on the 5th. That was the mistake. What can you do? What can you do? What can be done? Oh well. What's the point of performing if you don't fail every so often, right? All right. Yeah. I hope you guys have good plans for the weekend, man. The weekend's going to be a fun time. I watched a video showing a happy interview with a man, then it switched to a faded photo of him and told of his disappearance and death. I had an odd thought. Often in the end, we are just photographs. Yeah. Well, and that reminds me of a quote of the second death, right? The first death is when a person dies, and then the second death is the last time someone speaks their name. I don't really mind this, right? I feel like people get disturbed by this kind of thought of us fading away. But do you think a musical note grieves its own passing? Or do you think it's rather quite pleased with the moment that it comes into the world and lives and sends itself around until it steadily fades out of our hearing and out of existence? And we're all just quite glad for the passing of the musical note. And through time, we'll forget until, perhaps, it comes again. The most pretentious of us become books. Loaf. That reminds me, I need to write a book. That's so good. That's so good. There is a story that I've been trying to write for 10 years. And I've tried to do it in several different iterations, and it never quite works out. Because I didn't quite know where I wanted it to go, or it didn't make sense where I wanted to go. But now I think I have a better sense. But it's the story of a young lady who is living on an island amongst nature and is quite happy with it, when along comes a gigantic ship that is actually made of other ships. And it's a towering and an incredible tower of just ships that are hodgepodgely put together. And the ship comes through and goes over her island, and they clear cut the island. And she's thrust into the society that exists aboard this ship. And she tries to make sense of what's happening to her. And she begins to work with the others in this lower deck of the ship. And the primary job of the people working on the lower deck is to tear the ship apart from the inside in order to send the wood that they're tearing out of the ship upwards so that they can build more ships at the top of the thing. This eventually, of course, collapses, forcing her to the deck, and where everyone is living in this kind of superficial nonsense world where nothing is quite attached to the reality of what they're looking at. And everything is about just pretending like there isn't a ship under their feet that is sinking. And anytime she tells people that the ship is sinking, they laugh and roll their eyes, even as the deck of the ship goes into the water. And everyone retreats into the tower of boats. But they're not permitted to simply live in the boats. They have to do meaningless menial tasks and pointless endeavors to pay rent or to earn their keep. And as she ascends and ascends and ascends, eventually she ends up face to face with the owner of the ship, who is an old, disinterested, clueless man who is constantly looking through a telescope through the stars. And when she describes what they're doing, he goes, "Oh, pish, that can't possibly be. The most efficient way to do things is to bring all the wood to the top. Then it will be distributed back downward." And then I think she's just going to have a revolution and overthrow him. I think that's what's going to happen. She's just going to bring all of the people up because the boat is sinking, right? And this old man is literally denying it and completely disconnected, doesn't care at all, and is just spending all his time staring at the stars, hoping one day to maybe if we build upwards, we can actually get to one of the planets. That's his goal, to build the boats upwards to get to the planet as the boat is sinking. Yeah, I like that story. I got to sit down and write that thing. I keep trying and I keep failing. I just got to keep trying and fail better. I like Alan Watts when he talks about life being like a piece of music. The point of music is not to reach the end. If that were so, the fastest performers would be the best. The point is the music. Wait, I said photographs. Am I a boomer? Often in the end, we are just TikToks. That in the end, the whole of humanity is just going to be a bunch of people being like, that's it. That's all of humanity. Just shaking their booties, twerking. I went away for a bit. I'm back now. I see Doug Ford's face. You vomit. Yeah. The more TikToks you make, the more real you will be for the future generations. That's right. We are all but TikToks. I actually rather like TikTok. I find TikTok to be nice for like I can just do like a one-liner, right? And sometimes I actually think like I should just do a TikTok while I'm streaming, right? Like some of these headlines make for perfect, right? Make for absolutely perfect. Yeah, like let's just straight up. I'm gonna do it right now. It'd be so easy to do. All you gotta do, pick TikTok. You hit this little plus sign down here. Come on, TikTok, you can do better. There we go. Hit the little plus sign.
My roommate works at a call center.
I understand. TikTok's being so slow. This is supposed to be slick, TikTok. Come on, we've practiced this. Check this out. And then all I need to do is just go like camera. Sure, 15 seconds. Experts say, hey, Alberta is making sure that rich people can donate unlimited money to politicians. We've seen this before, haven't we? We sure we want to do this? We're absolutely sure. There you go. And there's a check mark. And you can add a whole bunch of stuff if you want. I never do, because fuck all that. Hashtags if you want, never do. There you go.
She's blind.
There you go. I just posted a TikTok. 1 million views. TikTok for president. Incidentally, expert says change to Election Finance Act may allow unlimited donations. So literally the Albertan election finance, what is it? Let me be specific. The bill amends the Election Act, the Election Finances and Contribution Disclosure Act, and the Alberta Personal Income Act. The bill has yet to be debated. One of the bill's amendments would allow unlimited contributions to candidates in nomination races, although these donations would not be tax deductible. Madhu previously said the lack of a donation limit is not an issue because the nomination candidates are not allowed to spend more than $12,500 on their nomination campaigns. Like, I actually think that $12,500 is ridiculously high. Do you have $12,500? That, like, the limit, if you want to call it that, of $12,500 essentially assures that the only people who can be effectual in politics are rich people. It's already absurdly high. What is my TikTok? It's just the Canadian commie. Easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. The only reason I had to change my name on Twitter to the Canuck commie was because there was a character limit. I was like, oh, that's fucking lame. Yeah, but University of Calgary political scientist Lisa Young said the amendment may allow an unlimited amount of money to be transferred to the winning candidate's election campaign. Because that's what we need. We need the rich to have more of an impact. Right? TikTok for president. I mean, at this point... Yeah, TikTok is owned by a Chinese company. Yeah. At this point, it can't be worse, right? Might as well have a TikTok for president. Yeah. We've all seen this before, but it's come back around and it's always worth looking at. McDonald's and Visa partnered to show fast food restaurant workers can live on $8.25 an hour if they budget. Unfortunately, that budget includes working a second job and not having heat. Let's go through it. Right? Monthly expenses, savings, $100. Very prudent. You should have savings of $100. Okay. Mortgage, rent, $600. The average rent is like $1,000. Like, that's the average rent. is $1,000. So already we're in delusional madness town. Like literally half the value. Like a bachelor apartment in Toronto. Ooh, it drops, yeah. Average price of one bedroom apartment in Toronto drops to $2,000. But according to these chuckle fucks, $600. Okay there, chappie. Right? Okay, chappie. Car payment, $150. What? 150? Average car payment monthly. Here in Ontario, the average car payment per month is $1,000. Okay, chuckle fucks. Okay, chuckle fucks. Car home insurance. Oh, sorry, that was for the insurance, I'm sure. Right? Still though. Okay, chuckle fucks. Health insurance, $20. Average American health insurance cost. The average annual cost of health insurance in the USA is $7,470 for an individual. What? Calculator. Huh, let's see. So 470 divided by 12, because there's 12 months in a year. Whoa! That's way fucking more. That's way fucking more than the $20. So they're just saying you don't get health insurance. Heating is actually set at 0. They're just saying heating is 0. Cable, phone, $100. Electric, $90. Other, things like food. Notice how there isn't even food. Daily spending money goal, $27. Get fucked. This is proof that rich people are so incredibly out of touch with reality. Thank you, Lynn DeWitt. Like, they actually released this. This was a serious document. Nope. This was a serious document that McDonald's and Visa partnered together and released. I remember when they released this. I remember it. I remember the campaign. It came out with an article saying, see, it's completely reasonable. This is a real thing that they actually released in order to condescendingly tell their own workers, the wage we pay is perfectly livable. The wage we pay is perfectly livable. Yeah. No, of course they're sociopathic, right? Like that's what Vincent DeLaw. Are you telling me that you have not bought in 100% to the thesis of this channel, which is that we are ruled by rapacious sociopaths? Have you not fully embraced the true reality that is that the ruling class is completely detached and sociopathic? That they simply are incapable of reason or logic or empathy or compassion? These things are beyond them? They're beyond them? I know, me too, bud. I'm just fucking around. Come on, I called you Vincent DeLaw. Come on. Oh, man. That's so nice to go through and just show people how fucking ridiculous these guys are. They're so fucking stupid. So, I reported recently how to send a resignation email. That search term has gone up by about 3,000%. Someone was very astute and pointed out, well, people weren't really searching for that in the first place, so a 3,000% increase isn't that much, right? You can see. compared to how to join a union. Like, look at that. How to join a union. Flying high through the sky, it's Astro Boy. Astro Boy. Ba 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 ba. Yeah, heating bill alone is $350 in a month in winter. Rent in Vancouver is $2,500 a month for a 2-bedroom. Yeah, like you've got to be a detached sociopath, right? Like it doesn't, like you literally, like where did they get these numbers from? They just invented them. Math doesn't matter, I guess. We must be in post-math times. It was the end of math, not history. Yeah. Well, I mean that flows in with what I was talking about on today's clip, right? Like, it doesn't matter to the economists. Like, they don't use math, right? They're just telling us things that fit their religious ideology, right? Like, they have no mathematical basis to support trickle-down economics. They have no mathematical basis to support supply-side economics. Neoliberal economics is not a mathematical model. It's not an economic system, right? So they all, yes, when you actually say we live in a post-math society, that's true, right? The prevailing basis, the basis of our ideology, of our system, is based on dreams and fairy farts. It's nothing. It's not even. It's not mathematical. It's not even reasonable, right? Like it's not even rational. Like and any attempt they've made to create a mathematical model has failed, right? Over and over and over again, and over and over again. Like I don't understand why we still take it seriously at all. Like it's obviously fraudulent. We are in a post-math world. We haven't been using math for anything. What do you think is going on? Oh, big shocker. Roger Shaw deal to proceed unencumbered, says RBC. Holy shit, the monopolization of our culture. Continuing on. All right, I'm going to put, I had a video. There it is. I'm going to let this guy talk for a minute. Because this guy's done a really, like, I love showing people who really know how to articulate things and articulate things well. So I'm going to platform this guy while I go use the loo. No, sound.
Is that they're sending us back to the Industrial Revolution. The New York Times Amazon is portrayed as a business pioneer, but the reality is that they're sending us back to the Industrial Revolution. The New York Times released a report of what it's like to work at an Amazon warehouse, and it found that turnover was so high that the company is worried that it could run out of workers. Now, back during the Industrial Revolution, factory owners were also facing the same problem, in part because they were literally working people to death and people were dying faster than they could be replaced, but also because the basic principles of managing workers hasn't changed. This might be a surprise to liberals reading the New York Times, but to socialists, it's pretty obvious, especially those who've read Harry Braverman's Labor and Monopoly Capital. The reason for this is that capitalism compels a specific logic for owners to act in a certain way, and here are 3 key concepts. First is the division of labor. This isn't new, but capitalism takes it to the extreme. Instead of employing many craftsmen who would make products like pins from start to finish, you would just hire a bunch of unskilled workers, teach them how to do a single thing, and work down a production line to mass produce goods. Amazon does the same thing by creating systems of distribution that break down order management, picking, shipping, etc. into basic tasks that can be performed by any worker. Once you've divorced specialized knowledge from labor, you can proceed with scientific management, which is the process of taking the unconscious aspects of managing labor and systematizing every worker's actions to make that labor more efficient. It's where you stand to minimize unnecessary movements, how long certain tasks are supposed to take, what quotas that you need to meet. The father of scientific management, Frederick Winslow Taylor, believed that workers would not work any harder than they needed to, and owners would have to dictate every step of their work and measure every key performance indicator. Now, does that sound familiar to you? And then there's mechanization and automation, but they're effectively the same thing. The usual story is that machines make work more efficient, thus lowering the prices of goods, and then creating surpluses shared by everyone. But the important thing to note is that workers aren't being eliminated altogether. They're still there, except now instead of the machine working at the pace of the worker, it's the worker working at the pace of the machine. This is Charlie Chaplin in modern times, Lucille Ball at the chocolate factory, an Amazon worker in front of a picking station. They're all being worked past their breaking limits, which puts them in a position of being fired for failing to meet inhuman expectations. capitalists need that ready pool of unskilled labor, whose only option is to work those inhuman conditions or starve, which is why it's unlikely that we'll see universal basic income in the near future. The silver lining to de-skilled labor is that we no longer have artisans guilds, and now we have labor unions. If you want to learn about how to organize a union, check out the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, which has guides, how-to videos, and real people who can help you organize a union.
TikTok. Like, people are pissed off, man. Like, people are pissed off. And it's just getting obvious. I keep using this word, obvious. Oh, I thought that thing on his mic was a frying pan. You're like, when's the cooking start? That's amazing. Oh boy, it wouldn't be a class in person at an American university without a yearly bomb threat. Nature is healing. The natural order is being restored post-COVID. Like, this is, like, really sad, yeah? That, like, it's just been normalized. That, like, the way they're coping with it is by, like, saying these jokes, right? Like, yikes. Yikes. Why would the Toronto Police Services need such a vehicle? Let's have a conversation about this. Please, inform me. Why would local law enforcement need access to such a vehicle? Right? Could it possibly be that they're preparing? Could it possibly be that they're gearing up for a crisis that they are responsible for creating? Looks like. I can't wait to be dispersed with sound cannons. I can't wait to have drones flying in the sky, right? I can't wait until those robot dogs are kettling us. That's going to be fun. That's going to be super fun. When the robot dogs are kettling us, yeah, that's going to be super normal and super cool. Yeah, hyper-militarized cops like that are all over the USA. Yeah, it's terrifying, right? And, like, the militarization of the American police force is undeniable and brutal. Like, absolutely brutal. That the idea that, like, everything's going to be hunky-dory in America, it's mostly intimidation. I think so too, Rob. I think so too. Like, there has been an overall decline in people, like, since the George Floyd protests. Like, when the George Floyd protests hit, you had an enormous amount of resignations. Like, you had people retiring early. You had police resigning. And I think that there's two solid reasons for this. Reason number one, I think that there was a lot of people who were like, this is not what I signed up for, right? If I want to be on the good side, like the side that says, like, some of these people actually do have, like, a moral conscience, right? They actually do have, like, a soul. Right? I did not sign up for what is obviously oppression of minority groups and what is obviously this kind of stuff. And then I think there's another side of it, which is the darker side, which I actually think is the more accurate side, which is, oh, I signed up to bully people. I didn't sign up to fight a war, right? I wasn't expecting these guys to fight back. I wasn't expecting them to actually, like, form lines and do riots. And, like, I wasn't expecting to have to actually, like, work in a significant and meaningful way, right? I wasn't expecting to have to stand somewhere and have bottles thrown at me, you know? I was expecting to be the bully. And suddenly they're not allowed to be the bully. And so I think a lot of these guys are starting to resign over that. Because, I mean, you're a coward, right? Like, you're a natural coward in the first place. And so they're leaving, right? And you can tell that that's having a very big impact because the Biden administration literally tripled the recruitment budget for their militarized police, right? It's also having a negative effect on the military, right? Because they've like doubled the recruitment budget for the United States military as well, because they're losing a lot of police officers and they're losing a lot of military personnel to attrition because people are beginning to understand what the job actually is. And what that does mean, though, is it means that the people who are staying in these institutions are the sociopaths, right? Are the people who want the fight, are the people who signed up to fight, who are there to fight, who want permission to crack people's heads open, who want permission to cause suffering and malice. That's who the that's what the police forces are turning into. Because any person with a moral conscience or a weak stomach has likely already left. They have militarized the police, hired veterans to do what they've done in Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, and Yemen to scare the hell out of people. Yeah, exactly. Well, and this goes back to like ancient Greece, right? That like the philosophers of ancient Greece and Athens knew well and understood that what Athens was doing to the rest of the world, it would bring home and do to its own citizens. And that's exactly what happened. It's the same thing with the Roman Empire. Right, all of the like soldiers that they sent over into the empire, into the Gaulish territories to create all the slaves and enslave people and do all that shit. Well, those soldiers came home, right? And what did they do when they got home? Well, they did the same thing, right? China has robot dogs too, robot dog fights. Yeah, man. Like, no, fuck this shit. Like it's bad enough that they're like doing this kind of shit, but then you're also telling me that they're gonna have robots? Fuck that. Like, fuck that. No. Like, I don't accept that. Like, period. And any institution that has robot military, any institution is a demonic, evil institution. Period. Full stop. Like, I won't listen to any point on this. No, I'm not interested in a debate. Not interested. If you have a robot with a weapon that you are having inflict itself on citizens, you are evil. Period. Like, full stop. Your position is indefensible. I consider you a Nazi at like best. I consider you on that level, right? And if robots, like if a protest was going on and a robot came out in order to do anything at all, and those protesters destroyed it, I would say, good. You did a good job. Well done. Excellent. Any society, any politician, anyone who supports this is the worst fascist you've ever met in your life. Period. Full stop. No defense. Like, I don't care. Destroy that robot. Destroy that stupid little dog. It's not property destruction. It's self-defense. Period. Like, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in hearing like a counter argument. You're not maintaining order. You're not increasing the profile of the police forces. You're not increasing the tool set of the police forces. You're automating oppression. It's extremely obvious that that's what you're doing. Like, police drones, those dogs, a robot, literally anything that is automated, if it is just like walking around acting like it has authority over anyone, destroy it. You have the right to. It's literally self-defense. It's literally self-preservation. Like, do not accept these at all. Period. At all. And if they try to convince you that you should accept it, they are fascists. The worst fascists you've ever seen in your life. Ever. They are the Nazis. They are Mussolini. They are literally like Hitler-level Nazis trying to get Nazi robots to fucking oppress you. Do not accept it. Ever. Period. Ever. It's a and it's literally a waste of money. It's literally the worst. It's just a way for a psychopath to dominate you with a fucking robot, with like an automated robot. They literally want to remove moral conscience from the decision-making process. Absolutely not. Abso-fucking-lutely not. Like, the very idea of it should be banned. The person standing up and arguing in favor of it should have their assets stripped, should be incarcerated for even arguing it. Like, that is how strongly I feel about this. Like, literally, you might as well stand up and tell me that it's okay to shoot my family and steal all my stuff. Yeah, there you go. We should convert these robot dogs into walking wheelchairs. There you go. There's a smart idea. Right? There's a smart idea. Why are we spending all this tech on these fucking dumbass robot dogs so that they can shoot us with tasers? Right? So that they can shoot out gas pellets and shit like this. That's exactly what they're going to be for. Like, are you kidding me? You're telling me that when mass protest begins, right? We've seen it. We've seen like the massive people and the police line. You're telling me that they're not just going to send a robot dog out to go out and shoot like gas pellets out? That's exactly what they're going to do. Like, you're nuts if you think anything else is going to happen with these dogs. Like, the fact that we're putting these dogs in front of people with like cheerleaders and like a stadium and they're like dancing and people are like, oh boy, yeah, robot dog, haha, aren't they just lovely? That's fucking terrifying. It's terrifying that even one person in our society is going, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha about this. We should all silently be looking at that going, that is a demon that we are manifesting into the world. We're literally constructing a demon by tearing metals out of the earth, by draining the bones of our ancestors from the earth, and squeezing and compressing them together, and firing electricity through it so it comes to life, so that it can oppress us and do violence to us without even understanding that what it's doing is obviously evil. It's a demon that we're creating in the world, and we should absolutely not be doing this. And the people who are doing it are demons. Fuck all of them. The same people who dropped nuclear bombs on civilian targets are making these things. Like, absolutely not. Abso-fucking-lutely not. Yeah, scrap them, melt them into ammunition, arm the working class. Yeah. Like, one thing I really don't understand is how are these dogs a big revolution in robots surveillance suppression tech versus just a thing on wheels that have been around for a long time already. I think the big shift is the autonomous nature, right? That the goal of this sociopath class that rules us is to just have oceans of these robots who are just autonomously dominating and oppressing us, right? That the goal is to, because the true benefit of these robots is that they don't actually have self-preservation, right? That any self-preservation they have is simply like reactive to what you're doing. Like if you throw a bottle at one of these things, it'll be programmed to open fire on you. That kind of thing, right? But like, it's not going to have a problem marching into a group of like 10 people and telling them to disperse. And then if you say no, tasing people. It's not going to have a problem with that, right? Like if you go up to a police officer, a lone police officer, and say, walk into that group of 10 men, tell them to disperse, and if they fight back, tase them. He probably isn't going to do that because he has a base survival self-preservation system. He understands that if he does that, he's probably going to get the shit kicked out of him, right? Robot doesn't care about that. Like robot doesn't give a shit about that. It's going to walk in there. It's going to tell you to disperse. You're going to say no. It's going to start tasing. And even if you fight back and even if you destroy it and even if you dismantle it, mission accomplished. Every time you see one of these things, you know it's going to come over and fuck with you, right? And if it comes over and tells you to do something, you better do it because it will fight to the death in order to enforce its directive, right? Like it's beyond intimidation. It's beyond intimidation. Robots will fight to the death in order to get you to follow basic commands. If it tells you to disperse and you don't, it will fight to the death. And it will hurt people while fighting. And it'll start with tasers. And then it'll use live ammunition. That's what's going to happen. That's how these things will be programmed. It's the reason they're being built. Anyone who thinks otherwise is absolutely deluding themselves, which is probably the majority of the populace. Like, it's literally, it is, I actually fundamentally believe this is true. It is going to take one of these robots opening fire on a crowd of people before people even begin questioning, do we need these things? That's what it's going to take for the populace. That it's not going to be until a robot opens fire. And then, of course, the media and the police will say, no, it was completely warranted. Even if the thing is like, even though it's never warranted, like, these things are fucking robots. They lack the ability to make decisions. They're programmed to kill. They're programmed to do that. And that's what they will be programmed to do. Like, without a doubt. Without a doubt. There's no other reason to have these things. Like, why else have them? Right? And for God's sakes, if you wanted to get, like, really evil and really dark about it, like, if you wanted to think like a psychopath, right? So you would equip these things with guns that have live ammunition on them, right? Probably like a pistol, something easy that they could just like, or attach it to his arm. Straight up attach it to his arm so he can just go, right? Right? So this will be live, this will be taser, right? Or even worse, it'll just be in his fingers or whatever. So it'll be like live taser, right? Like, it'll just be built in, right? Maybe he'll have like literally like gas that he can spray. Like, fucking equip this thing with a flamethrower. Who gives a shit, right? So, and that's just like basic. And then why not equip this thing with like C4 charges that if it gets disabled, it just self-destructs and blows up, right? What a great deterrent. That's how they'll argue for shit like that. Oh yeah, people won't fuck with these things because when they fuck with them, they blow up and kill people, right? That's coming. Like, that's what these things are. Like, are you fucking kidding me? But yeah, look at it dance. Look at it dance. Look at it dance. Look, it's dancing, everybody. Isn't it so cute? Isn't it so cute to see this dancing robot? Yeah, no, it isn't. No, it fucking isn't. These things are terrorist tools. That's what they're for. And if they start to come into practice and into use, destroying them is your civic duty. It's what you should do. It's what everyone should do. And if anyone tries to stop you, they're a fascist. Tell me differently. Like, literally, you're taking a bomb and putting it on the streets and saying this is how we're going to police people. I don't accept it. And I think if you do, you're a goddamned idiot. Well, this has been this clip. Please like, share, subscribe. This is the shit we're dealing with. Give me money. Support people like me and stop supporting these fucking fascist losers. Stop clapping your hands every time Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos does anything. Right? They're not your friends. They're trying to make robots to murder you and your family. Like, get a grip. Good luck. We're gonna need it. No, man, I love TikTok dances. I love TikTok dances. I'm going to be straight with you. Like, I'm on TikTok and I'm going and there's people like, I've got information. I've got this idea. I'm doing this thing. And then there's just like a beautiful woman with big giant tits doing a dance. And I'm like, in. Let's go. Alleviate my suffering, please. Please, beautiful woman, alleviate my suffering with no judgment or sense of even wanting anything from me. Like, yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Like, absolutely. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Like, fuck this shit. Like, anytime I talk this way, somebody always tries to, like, tisk me. Fuck you. Like, yeah. Oh, the robot dog's doing the TikTok dance. Oh, did I just reveal something about myself that I didn't have to? Whatever. I love beautiful women dancing. Sue me. Yeah, the robot dog's doing the TikTok dances. Fuck that whole thing. Fuck this whole thing. Like, honestly. Like, fuck this whole thing. Robot dog dancing state. Yeah, that football game. There it is. Like. Oh, it's so cute. Look how cute this thing is. Look how agile. Look how stable. Like, look, oh yeah, it can wiggle. It really knows how to move itself so that it can aim and target. Right? It really knows how to, oh look, it's doing like a cool little dance on the spot. Right? Looks like it'll be really hard to kick over. Looks like it'll be able to stabilize itself really easily so that you won't be able to knock it over. Right? Looks like it'll have its footing pretty well. Right? Like this is exactly how we should be talking about these things. Like, yeah, look at that. Look how it can do a concentric circle to find a target and shoot at it. Right? I wonder how fast these things are. There you go. Running.
Everything has a price except this robot dog. It's the latest invention of Boston Dynamics. It's the Google-owned robotics company. And, of course, it's called Spot.
No, this is old. Yeah, look, he tries to kick it over. Nothing. Right? Look how stable it is. Look how stable it is. Oh, here's some rough terrain. Right? Here's some rough terrain. It's completely fine with rough terrain. It might be actually more agile in rough terrain than you are. Good luck running from it. No, I want to see these things running. No, running fast. A bit faster than Usain Bolt. So you're not going to be able to outrun these things. They have excellent targeting systems. You can't knock them over easily. They're made of metal. They have built-in armor. Wheelchairs. Like, fortunately, it looks like it doesn't have full stability yet. How old's this video? This was 2012. This was fucking 10 years ago. How much better do you think it is now? Right? What? Oh, why aren't they showing us the robot dog running? Huh? Cute little dances. Right? Here's something from a year ago.
So Spot is...
I get a cute little name. It's Spot. I get a cute little name. Its name is Spot. This terror weapon that they're 100% going to use to terrorize us.
Quadruped robot that the controller,
oh, yeah,
and that
good.
for
they
me was enough to know
right?
dog-like, and it can give you a little head tilt and all this.
They definitely won't send it into crowds of people. They definitely won't charge crowds of people with this, like they've done with horses and vehicles already. They definitely won't do any of that. Like, that's not going to happen, right?
Crazy stuff, but like I said, when it's standing, the motors are still on for self-balancing.
Oh, look, it has facial recognition. Do you see? You tilt your head and it tilts with you, right? So it's going to be taking pictures of you. It's going to be shooting fucking shit in your face.
You can quickly see if a strong gazy. It looks like another dog.
It looks like another dog. Totally fucking normal.
On already knows to take a higher step when there's a curb in front of it. It doesn't trip at all. And if there's ever an obstacle in front of it, it's mapped out the whole thing, and it already knows how high each step should be to climb over something, like a real dog would know if it was walking over the same thing. But I will say, Spot is still a robot, and so it is, after all, not exactly perfect. Part of what they will do out here near Boston is push these robots to the limit to try to find what needs improving, to figure out what can be built better, smoother, or more consistently. So for example, one of the situational awareness areas that Spot needs the most work is object detection, because Spot's cameras have a hard time telling what objects are solid versus not so solid. So where a human would instinctively know you can't step on snow the same way as rocks or dirt versus leaves, sometimes Spot has to step on it to figure it out. So sometimes things like bushes or plants can confuse him when he thinks he can't step on them.
Okay, good. So camouflage, plant camouflage, things that are moving, things that have a non-permanence, right? They have difficulty recognizing. Good information to know. Excellent information to know when they unleash these things on us. Yeah, failure. Please tell me how these things fail. I would like to know, because we are going to be fighting these things. Like, that's a guarantee. There you go. Fuck you.
So, yeah, no robot is perfect. But you have to remember, that's the whole point of this testing. They're always pushing it to the limit to figure out how to make Spot better. And so they will often fail. What happens when Spot fails? Well, as you can see, he's gotten pretty good at this whole self-righting thing to get back up. So if he's fallen down, he can self-right. Even if he's upside down, they can flip back over. And as we saw, a lot of times he'll catch himself before he's actually fallen in the first place. So he does a pretty good job of avoiding failure, but if he does fail, he has a move to get out of it.
That's good. Isn't it nice that even after even after it fails, it just gets right back up, tirelessly pursuing its objective. Like, absolutely not. Open fire on these things on sight. Like, for sure. I have no problem saying that. Like, this is unacceptable. Period. It would be unacceptable in war. It's unacceptable on our streets. It's unacceptable. Period. Full stop. Anybody debating otherwise is a fucking fascist. Like, no. Do not give these to police forces. Do not allow politicians to have these. Do not allow corporations to have these. Do not allow private individuals to have these. It's not a freedom issue. They don't have the freedom to have a fucking autonomous robot dog. Right? They don't have the freedom to have a fucking war machine. No. Like, fucking no. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And, like, the response from the fascists will be, well, then just do what it says. Subserviate yourself to the robot dog. Right? Submit to the will of the robot dog. A while back, Honolulu Police Department spent $150,000 to buy a Spot patrol to patrol homeless areas. Yeah. No, it's going to happen there first. Those are going to be the testing grounds, right? The testing grounds will be in like poor communities and like backwater kind of places where the media won't report. Nobody's actually going to talk about it, right? And then finally, when they've perfected them, they'll unleash them on us. Like, it's what's happening. Right? Like, what do you think when Jeff Bezos brings in, like, a fucking big balloon full of drones? The United States military isn't looking at that as a pilot project for their future of automation suppression? It's absolutely happening. Like, it's absolutely happening. And, like, and when it happens, like, when they finally pull the switch on this shit, it's going to happen all at once. Right? It's literally going to go from 0 to 100, right? They'll have run the plans, they'll have run the strategies, they'll have run the tests, they'll have done it in smaller island nations, they'll have used it in military adventurism overseas, they'll have brought it into like Iraq or wherever the fuck, in Somalia or whatever the fuck, they'll have used it, they'll have done like thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of testing on brown people, and then suddenly they'll be walking the streets of New York and there'll be drones in the sky, and that'll just be normal right away. Like, literally, it'll happen in like a month. It'll just be like, boom, this is what we're doing. And it'll be like this overwhelming force, and then everyone will then go and complain to the politician who will be like, I hear you, I understand, and then do nothing about it. And then everybody will rally and get angry about it and then vote in some other guy who also will do nothing about it. And then everyone will just be like, well, I guess they're here, and that'll be the end of the conversation. That's exactly what's happening with these. Anything else, if you think anything else, you're just deluding yourself. Right? That you're going to have like a police officer and right beside him is going to be Officer fucking Spot. Yeah, automated armored drones flying in the air on their own accord with thermal vision. Yeah. If these are used and that box is open, is it bad if a civilian group gets theirs to fight against them? Like, this is where things get kind of fucky, right? China actually banned drones, right? And they banned them because what was happening is like an Amazon drone would like fly by, and then the mafia, right, the crime guys, would capture those drones with drones of their own, right? They'd have drones with nets that would capture the drones with the packages. So then they'd get a drone and they'd also get the package, right? And the police response to this was to, well, we'll get our own drones with our own nets. So we'll net the drones that net the drones, right? So you have like drones, and all of them were flying around, all this kind of stuff, and eventually China just said, fuck all of this. Fuck all of this. And they got rid of all of it, right? Let's get to the other side of this. Recognize the threat. It's right in front of your fucking eyes, right? It's right in front of your fucking eyes, right? Think about the types of people that are using these things, okay? They already are charging into groups of people on horseback. They're already taking police vehicles and ramming them into protesters. They're already opening fire on protesters. They're already shooting rubber bullets at them. They're already gassing them. They're already using heat disbursement and sound disbursement. They're already doing all of that. What makes you think they're going to use this thing any differently? No. Like, no. Robot dog versus robot dog doesn't seem effective, honestly. No, and I mean, to me, it really is that they can just seamlessly send this thing into a group of people and unleash hell, right? Like, that's what they're going to do. Like, they're going to equip this thing with like a gas disbursement chamber, and it's just going to walk into the middle of protesters. And it's not going to give a fuck. It's not going to care at all. Like, no. Well, on that dour note, we've reached the end of all of this. I hope you guys have a good weekend. I hope you spend some time, rest, relax. There's no shame in resting. Do not feel guilty about your rest. Do not feel guilty about recovering from the capitalist death cult. You are a quantum being, standing in quantum energy that created you. And it created you for reasons that are well beyond the ken of these fucking psychopaths who are attempting to own you. Don't let them. Good luck. We're gonna need it.